Alright. We're doing it. We're here. Music is more reasonable volume. Nix, hello, welcome. Kirare. Kirare. I don't know how to say that exactly. I think it's Kirare. But hello. Welcome. Episode 2 of the Advice Show. Wham, you sound off. Give me soundbite. Give me some level check.
Hello.
Perfect,
Can you hear
beautiful.
me?
And
Hi, Kyra. Hi, everyone. Lunar and the others.
everyone else. So, Gwen, please, if you don't mind, it's been over a month since we did the show. I know we were supposed to do it a month, but it's been a hell of a month for me. I don't know about you. You want to start? Give us people a little bit of a catch up. What's been going on?
Yeah, so let's see. What's happened in the last month? We've got, I think we had the baby chicks at the time, last month. But those baby chicks are now much larger, and they are about, if you have proper speakers on your desk, they're a little larger than a speaker. They're not full-size chickens yet, but they're pretty big.
Gotcha.
And they're doing real well, and we got 7 of them. And it seems like we have no roosters, which you never know when you're getting new chicks, if you're gonna get roosters. The support groups and stuff that I've been doing have been going well. My school is about to start in about 13. It's the 13th, so I think 1 to 9 days. I'm gonna be starting to get ready to do my final prereqs that I need. I have 2 prereqs, so everyone, I have a bachelor's already, but I have 2 prereqs that I need so that I can start master's in social work. So I'm starting to do those prereqs online, and then I'm gonna scrounge together my recommendations from various organizations I've worked with in the past so that I can start a master. We did a period piece competition in the Worm Discord that I moderate, Worm the fandom, the web serial. And that ended 4 days ago, and I'm just waiting for the judges to give me their decisions, so that decisions and connect me with the winner so that I can hand out prize money, because we ran a little prize pool for it through PayPal, which I've been managing. My dad has been working a lot of overtime, and he texted me the other day like, hey, how much do you have owe on your student loans? And I was like, X amount of dollars, 15,000-ish. I gave him the number and a picture, and he was like, okay, on the 17th, I'm sending you that amount of money, and you can pay them all off.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a hell yeah. Don't get a hell yeah in chat. That's fucking crazy.
That's a hell yeah. It's a hell yeah moment. And it's not to be confused with regular worms. And what's the last thing? There was one other thing. I don't remember, but there's been a lot of stuff going on.
It's been a lot. Like I was saying, like fucking just thing after thing every week, just like densely packed, like it's a fucking novel or something like that.
My birthday, 10 days.
Your birthday's in 10 days?
My birthday is in 10 days. I'm gonna be 31.
Mind if I just real quick? Boom. 31. Hell yeah. I'm right there with you. It's turned 33, and that's, man. Feel it. But yeah, no, my month similarly was pretty full. Um, had a whole like fling. Had a whole like
Oh my.
with the fling. There was a whole like
Oh yeah, your whole thing.
whole revelation. Yeah, like a whole
Yeah, you had a whole
metamorphosis, you
big,
might say. Yeah, that
yeah,
was the whole
a
character arc that
giant
happened in 10
experience.
days. Yeah.
a whirlwind.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And I felt exhausted / drained after that. But I've been rebuilding, getting so much experience. I feel like I quit Tarkov to move and do like tabletop stuff. A bunch of writing I've been doing, world building. World building I'm doing for the first time. Usually the big difference there is I used to write and play in other settings and everyone else's like lore and everything like that. And for once I'm making it with people, so it's not like all inherent to me. Obviously you were there, you know,
Yeah.
itself and stuff like that, but um it was my first time actually trying to do that, and so and it's really fulfilling but very challenging. It's like constantly stumbling into more things to extrapolate on ad infinitum almost. It's like the more things you stumble over, the more things you're like finding that you can stumble over in the negative space around that thing, and it just doesn't stop. Yeah, Nix, no, I quit Tarkov. Like, there's a chance maybe like a year or two that I'll like check it out again, but I'm not interested, especially after all the bullshit recently. It seems that's something we can touch on real quick. Game companies. Question
Yeah,
mark.
publishers. Game companies, publishers, microtransactions.
Awful. State of our world.
Halo Infinite has been having problems recently because Halo Infinite is the FPS that I mostly play, and 343 has been restructuring and reorganizing around their new project, and the intention is for there to be ongoing development with Halo Infinite. Not a ton, but still, it's not, the game isn't complete, isn't over, the live service. But they are working on the new game, and so things are kind of like in a weird in-between state where there's not a lot of stuff coming out at the moment. But what is coming out is a whole lot of extremely expensive microtransactions, and every time people complain, like, hey, Halo, your 343, your microtransactions are like insane prices, even for microtransactions. Like, they're like $30-$35 for a big package of stuff, but it's like, that's big for...
Yeah.
That's a big expenditure compared to a lot of games with microtransactions.
Yeah.
But every time they do that, they're like, okay, we'll fix it. And then the next thing comes out and the prices have gone up by a little bit more.
I mean, obviously people are still buying them is the unfortunate part. Like, people that care and know that it's a problem are going to say so. Everything like that, but there's going to be people buying it.
It's not clear that 343 has much power over that because they are controlled by Microsoft.
Right. Which is the same problem we're talking about with PSN and Sony and Arrowhead with Helldivers 2. You know, that whole situation.
Yeah. So, to be clear for people who don't know, which I think is going to be exclusively Kyra, given the size of the chat at the moment.
Yeah.
Arrowhead, Helldivers 2, has been super, super successful, has an extremely generous and downright ethical microtransaction model, super cool live service, like ongoing campaign sort of part of the multiplayer experience. And PSN, Sony, has just like been like, hey, by the way, it's always intended for people to, it was always intended when this came out that people would need to create a PSN account to play it. Well, they didn't do that on launch. So people haven't needed a PSN account, but now they want to implement it. And as it turns out, it's been really big in China and the Baltics and, everywhere because it's been a gigantic success. And there's a ton of countries where PSN is not available. And people can use VPNs to create an account on PSN, but Sony has systems in place to identify when people are creating accounts through VPNs that are faking their locations and are banning people for it. So people have effectively bought this $40 product, potentially bought microtransactions, and they're now being locked out of the game. And it is a big problem.
Yeah.
It's an expansion, an add-on to the whole thing with The Crew, which is still an ongoing campaign. I forget what it's called, Save Our Games or whatever, where The Crew's live service was shut down. And some influencer, I forget the name of, but who is pretty big, has started a big campaign because it has been a problem for a long time where live service games get shut down but never get patched so that they work offline or work single player. And so people who've bought the games just lose the games. And that's been continuing to be a thing and has been getting worse for years and years and years. And yeah, it is, I think, the big movement and problem in gaming right now, and it is a legit, this is not Gamergate. This is a legit anti-capitalist sort of little movement going on.
Yeah,
and it's worth it. I think it's worth really investing a lot of time into, because the situations around the way games get deleted effectively off the face of the planet, and the way publishers treat their games in the gaming industry is a microcosm of the way Amazon treats book rentals, and the way Apple treats music, and the way Spotify and streaming services treat all their music and media that they have access to, their entire libraries, the way Disney treats their media library, the way that, for instance, all the movies that have been produced and then destroyed because it's higher cost savings or higher money savings to write them off write them off in your taxes as a failed project, as a loss, is more profitable than what people project the profit of the movie is. And so the media and all the effort is just archived and or deleted completely. It hurts the community, it hurts the culture, it hurts competition, it hurts capitalism, and it hurts the people who work on the projects, it hurts the people who consume the media. The only people it doesn't hurt is the shareholders, and frankly, fuck them.
Well, to be fair to that point, too, the one thing different here is that Sony was already on thin ice before this.
Mm-hmm.
They've been on thin ice with people and the trusted people, and this is just going to nail the coffin shut there, I think, as far as anyone having trust or any kind of faith in them to do the right thing at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kyra, 100%, I agree. That, if you're basically just becoming the next EA or Microsoft or, Blizzard or whatever, it's non-stop. This crazy cycle of this, people becoming demons or selling out as they gain hold of any kind of power over a space like that.
Yeah. Now, there is some hope that because Steam, Valve, and Gavin Newsom are generally pretty good at not being evil. They're not perfect, but they're generally pretty good. There is some hope that people who are going to be locked out of the game will be able to get refunds from Steam. And if that does go through, if that becomes a thing, if Steam allows that, Sony could face some legit monetary problems. Not Sony, but well, I mean, the big problem is it's going to affect Arrowhead, the studio that developed the game, and they didn't make this decision. It's Sony that made the decision.
Yeah, there's something to be said there about, you know, selling your soul, the devil kind of thing, making that kind of contract with someone like Sony as a developer. Yeah. Even if it was necessary for them, I get that. But this is the price, you know? Kind of becomes the price associated with that. When Kyra, when reading, listening to a lot of archivists in general who are like, we are in a digital archival dark age. If you don't have a physical copy, you're fucked because companies can swipe shit and all of your stuff on the internet is gone. Yeah. Yeah, people have been talking about Steam being a problem in that regard too sometimes, because in their TOS, like, if they delete the game, if they unlist the game, it's no longer yours. Doesn't matter if you bought it or whatever, it's just gone. You don't have access to it anymore. So, yeah.
Now, if it's still in your library, sometimes there's an opportunity for you to re-download it despite it not existing anymore.
Yeah.
But only if it's still in your library, so don't delete those things. But yes, regarding digital archival and stuff, the Internet Archive and Wikipedia, as always, I mean, Wikipedia gets a lot of money, but from donations every year, but their costs go up and up and up every year. And the Internet Archive is the same deal, except they get even fewer donations. So if you ever have an opportunity, the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive.
Yeah.
If you ever have an opportunity and just a little bit of extra money, send them a buck or two. It's worth it. The Internet Archive is a massive resource for modern historians, contemporary historians, I mean, internet historians in general, just people who are looking for old resources, not just historians, but researchers who are looking for resources from the early 2000s and late 90s and can't find them. Well, they're there in the Internet Archive, hopefully, and that's pretty much going to be the only place you're going to be able to find them for possibly decades or possibly forever, because if the Internet Archive disappears, if Wayback Machine has to go offline, there's a good chance that stuff just disappears completely.
Yeah, 100%. So this is your monthly PSA, that fucking, you know, relevant thing today is keep your info safe, downloaded. Take it, store it somewhere.
Yep, and be wary of cloud computing.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
Cloud computing, they can lose your data if they have outages. Your data can get stolen. Ultimately, what it comes down to is cloud computing is a fancy term for someone else's computer, as Louis Rossmann always says.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't store sensitive data or private data on someone else's computer if you could help it. It's better to have a hard copy on an SSD on a shelf somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah, and print it in print.
Sure. All right. With that said, we're gonna go ahead and get into our first thing. I did mention in an announcement earlier, we did get the Telenym thing set up. That is linked here. I'll pin that as well. Unable to pin. I think this happened to me last time because it's like an issue with my fucking OBS plugin or whatever. Nix, if you could pin that for me. Print out your photos, journal if you can, make copies of your memories. Yeah, don't get MySpace. For sure. For sure.
It's always been weird with my family because my dad's a little sentimental, but he doesn't take photos. My mom, completely not sentimental. She's like, we moved and she was like, hey Graham, help me go through all the family photos, and we threw away maybe half of them. She was like, these ones aren't valuable. And I was like, no, I don't think they're valuable either. I'm the same way. I was like, I don't know about those ones. They're not that important. But it is important to save some. It's important to save some memories. So, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, to our first one, Gwen. If you want to read this one, you can. Just kind of take turns reading them, or I can read through them if you want.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna start with the super short one, and it's super important. Here's a random person on our advice who says, if someone wants to contact you but doesn't block you, is that a sign that they're maybe open to contact in the future? Let's say it's someone who was a close friend or ex. And Kyra, if you want to chime in and chat about this, you can, but you don't have to if you don't want. But
yeah,
I have
anyone in
things to
chat
say
welcome
about
to
this.
chime in with stuff for sure. Yeah.
I'm talking to Kyra specifically because Kyra and I were dating for a long time, a year about, and we broke up, and it took us a while to get back to a point where we could talk to each other comfortably. And like, I was okay with it, but I didn't need to separate myself, and Kyra did. And for a little bit, I didn't realize it until she told me. And that's really important. When someone tells you they need space, you give them space. It doesn't matter if they don't block you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they are in a community with you where you can see their posts. It doesn't matter if you know them IRL. If you can help it, if there's any way you can help it, you just don't talk to them. When someone sets a boundary like that, you don't test it, and it's not healthy for you. It's not just because it's not healthy for them to test it, or you might get in trouble because they might call you a harasser, or you might be called a stalker, or anything like that. It's just healthier for you to avoid those relationships where there is active animus. And it's important to not gaslight yourself into thinking that, oh, maybe something's okay. Maybe I can push some boundaries here and there. Because you shouldn't. Just don't gaslight yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, if someone says, don't contact me, there's no other modifier there. It's don't contact me. And that is just indefinite until they come back and say, okay, I'm ready to talk again. You just have to assume that they're going to extend that indefinitely because there's no modifier to it. You have to take it at face value. Not doing that is putting presumption on them from you, projecting on them, and taking away their agency in turn by saying, well, maybe it's okay now. Maybe they just didn't tell me, or they're not doing this or that. All that's going to get you in trouble. You can't do that, for sure. 100% agree.
The other big thing is...
Yeah, exactly, Kyra. I didn't read chat before I said that, but that's exactly correct. We're on the same page, for sure.
Yeah, and definitely the other thing is, yes, allow them to contact you on their terms. It's really important. You remember, yes, maybe this person might eventually feel okay and comfortable talking to you again. You're better off putting yourself in a mental position and in a mental space where you can accept and come to terms with the possibility that they never do. And if they happen to, you might consider it a friendly surprise, or you might be so completely over them at that point that you just say, actually, no, I'm going to mutually no contact you. But you're better off just completely separating yourself emotionally. And if you happen to have an opportunity to rekindle that relationship in the future, friendship or whatever it was, then rekindle it from closer to zero than allow that history to disappear, because that history is going to be a problem.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And there's also some throwback to the last episode as well here, because there was some person had a question basically revolving around, I want to talk to this person I can't talk to. one of the things we said also was that if you really need to say something, but you can't talk to them, whether that's because of no contact or whatever the case in this situation, you can write them a letter and don't send it. Write an email, write a letter, and then when you do see them eventually, or even if you just want to have a memento for like what you're going through, whatever at the time, it's good to write it out, even if it never sees the light of day. It's good to kind of get it onto paper or get it out of your head in a way, That sometimes really is for the better of both parties. So we needed that time away from Graham to organize and heal. I wanted to give them space well so I could heal. That's not even it.
Enjoy your ads.
Yeah.
I had one other thing I wanted to say, but my brain kind of did a skip. But
no worries. So, do you have anything else you want to say? You said anything more about this, which I think is good. I think we got all the big points, and then
it's ultimately it's a really simple issue, but I think everyone falls into that trap at some point. Actually, the thing I was going to mention is I had a best friend. I'm the sort of person who has lots and lots of best friends. I had a best friend in junior high and high school named Drew. And I'm not going to name last names, but obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
They were perfectly fine. There were no problems with them or anything like that. But we grew apart, as kids often do as they grow into adults. But we did have a lot of chemistry. I had a lot of good times with him. Like we had the sort of chemistry where your humor just plays off each other in a really fun way, where you can just be laughing for hours and hours. And even as a kid, that can be kind of rare.
Yeah.
And I still have dreams, and it's not just high school and junior high dreams, but like regular dreams, where he is a recurring character. But it is the high school version of him. And it is the version of him that I didn't grow apart from. And I've never tried to contact him because it was clear at the time that we weren't friends anymore. Not because anything had happened, but just because that's how it happened to work out. He had other friends, and he went to a different school, and he had different interests, and we were no longer friends. And even though I still think about him all the time, I do my best to never think, I should talk to him. I should track him down. I should go say sorry to him for not being there as a friend when his family went through X tragedy or whatever like that. Because it's just not my place. And I could have put myself through a lot of drama and personal trauma through trying to rekindle that relationship multiple times throughout my life. And I've just avoided it. And it's been better for me to avoid it. There's no fooling myself that that relationship was over. And that's important, that sometimes you leave those things in your dreams.
Yeah, it's good shit. I agree. And that's something I've had to learn recently, actually, going through that kind of. Not to such a great extent, I don't think. Like, people that I kind of fell out of touch with, even over the course of the past couple of years. Doing the similar kind of stuff. So not like childhood friends necessarily, but like,
Yeah, people you've met while streaming or playing games.
There was one exception to that. Someone I didn't try to rekindle, but someone I was just looking to see if I could have any remnant, any kind of, like, to even just have a representation of a place that was real. Like, when I went to private school when I was young. Like, this was 3rd grade, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And like 3rd to 5th grade or so, I was at this school called Gateway Private Christian School, and um, there's a class of maybe 6 of us or so in a little place in Texas, and there was a elementary to middle school to high school section. It was all very small, maybe 50 people in the whole building at any given time. And my little class, I had some good friends. Like, we had to be good friends, all of us. We knew each other very well. You know, it's a very small sample size. But when I was like maybe 19 or so, 20 or so ish, I didn't have contact with any of them at all. But I wondered if I could find them because I knew their names. I still remembered quite a few of their names, especially one of them. And this one named Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
I got in touch with him through Facebook. And there were several people with his name, but I found someone kind of similar. So I remembered this wild goose chase situation. Ended up finding the right person and talked to him, and that was such a surreal experience of being like, yeah, I do remember you actually, because that was like a really weird time in my life. Because like, you know, my mom was our teacher at the school.
Oh yeah,
And
that would be
so
kind of an odd spot.
yeah, so it was very primordial to kind of have someone from that kind of time where you were really
Yeah,
being
from that
shaped.
era, just show up again.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
we talked once, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of just like, hey, this is where I'm at, that's where he's at, cool, thumbs up, hope you do well, and kind of left it at
Yes.
that, you know? That's great.
Yes, you engaged in some nostalgia together, and that was all you needed to do.
Yeah, exactly. But that topic over, moving on. Next one, the two that I brought, two of the three that I brought specifically were about the workplace, coworkers, stuff like that. And before I read this, see, I almost missed Kyra. Some people are bittersweet, some change positions in your life, and can be essentially forever. It's hard, but it's better to allow yourself to enjoy the good you had over forcing more you won't give from somebody unwilling to give it. Sometimes those losses are vacancies for newer things coming in. You just know what or who is coming into your life yet. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. You never know.
Yeah,
Life is interesting and dynamic, and you can leave it space to be interesting and dynamic. You don't gotta chase after stuff.
yeah, 100%. The seasons are gonna
Mm-hmm.
pass if you just sit where you are, let it happen. You can move sometimes if you want to and get the new scenery, but the seasons are gonna change.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can I be more mature in the workplace or around coworkers? And I feel like this is a more unique issue to have in our era now, where people are used to interacting more online, I think, through the filter online. Even, I don't know what it's like to go to school now, is my problem. At school in 2005, 2009, it was much different than it is probably now, high school, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but to elaborate a bit, this person's 24 and they work in an office job, which is the first job they've ever had outside of uni, so they did go to college. The other day I bumped into a coworker outside of work and pretty much blushed, sort of ran away, and acted kind of really awkward. Thinking back on it, I regret it and really wish I'd acted like a grown-up and said hi properly. I tend to act on a whim and then regret what I've said or done afterwards, thinking, oh gosh, that was so embarrassing and immature of me. I'm very conscious of how it affects my coworkers' image of me, which is why I even stopped drinking alcohol completely around work peers. My question is there anything I can do to act/think more poised and mature? Is there anything I can do to act my age more? I feel as if I try so hard to seem respectable and mature, but at the end of the day, my age catches up to me, and I end up seeming giddy/silly, and it eats away at me. And I think this is a really difficult thing to just be like, just grow up. You know, because you can't do that. That's not how that works. When that's
Yeah.
kind of what it seems like they're trying to hear. Um, you just it's a skill. It's a skill thing. It's not like, I don't mean to say that like, oh, skill issue, but like we have our skills and you have to work on them. You have to like learn how to do that. No one, even if someone your same age is really good at being social, they must have invested a lot of that, you know, at a young developing age.
Yeah, and part of this is it could easily be just part of some of the mental issues they have and that they struggle
Mhm.
with. And it sounds like they
Right.
have some anxiety that they struggle with.
Right.
And
Yeah, being self-conscious about the image. And I will say,
yeah,
to their credit, not drinking around your work peers.
yeah,
I
it's a big step.
Yeah, I have to say that's probably good. Not even just for this person, but I also struggle to feel comfortable, just in general, around. If I have my work friends that I interact with, my coworkers and stuff, I don't always want to go out and do stuff with them. Like if we come over to my house or I go over to their house and hang out or whatever, a little bit. I've done that before. That's fine. I couldn't imagine going out to the bar and like drinking and stuff. I don't trust them like that, really. I don't really
Hmm.
want to get into all that.
Yeah,
I have made a fool of myself though, so I've learned that lesson. I'm sure this person's going through the same.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, though, a lot of relationships are context dependent, and it's really difficult to shift contexts on the fly.
Hmm.
Um, and for some people, it's downright impossible. And it could be that you are just the sort of person who is very professional during work and is awkward and weird outside of work. Um,
Yeah.
and ultimately, shifting those contexts, it is a matter of practice. Um, if you meet those people outside of work more often, you will be able to shift context more regularly and more effectively.
Hmm.
Um, but only if you're meeting them happenstantially. If you're meeting work friends or coworkers in a friendly environment, you're going to be treating them more like friends or peers, and it's going to affect the dynamic. And um, you sort of have to force yourself into that mental space where you say, no, even if we're in a friendly space, I'm going to treat these people professionally.
Hmm.
Um, and that can interfere with your ability to make friends, which is a problem because as an adult, a lot of your opportunity for making friends is going to be at work. If you're a working person who works all the time, if you have a
Yeah,
full-time job.
for sure. 'Cause, I mean,
So
that's
I'm
all
not
we
sure
do.
I'd even recommend doing what this person wants to do. Um, you can be professional on while you're on the clock and be more honest with yourself and more open off the clock. And I don't think that's a bad spot to be in. I think this person would be better served by becoming more comfortable with the fact that they're just a little silly sometimes when they're not
Yeah.
uh, actively performing a task that they're being paid for. Uh, and just accepting that maybe some of their coworkers are going to think they're a little weird.
Hmm.
But maybe some of their coworkers are, I mean, a lot of people have different faces that they present in different
Hmm.
circumstances. That's how
Yeah.
humans work.
Yeah. And this
Uh,
question basically is like, how do I mask all the time?
yeah. So
Which,
I feel
if you
like,
want to do that, you shouldn't, but you
yeah,
could, but you
I feel
shouldn't.
like for the most part, people are going to understand that you're going to behave differently in a different circumstance.
Yeah.
Uh,
Especially bumping into someone, like you were saying, the context matters a lot. And specifically bumping into someone, we call it that for that reason. You're not prepared at all. You don't have any
mhm.
kind of preparation. Like, you're not running through what you're going to say that
Oh yeah,
day from before then, past 2 days or whatever. There's no chance for you to prepare anything. So you just have to improv, and that in itself is a subset of the skill of socialization.
yeah,
Which, you know, good luck.
yeah. And then, let's be honest, it's not much of a weirder spot to be in as um, this isn't much of a weirder spot to be in than it is to be a kid meeting your school teacher at the grocery store and just coming across him. I think that feeling is the same no matter what age you are if you don't happen to see him very regularly.
Yeah.
Because they aren't people outside of workplace if you're not treating them that way. If you're not actively trying to make friends with them, if you're not like being buddy with them, then they may not be fully realized individuals in your brain. And so the circumstance of meeting them outside of work is just going to be uncanny and strange no matter what. So this could be just trying to, it could be learning about these people and your coworkers and getting to know them better would mitigate this problem, because it is fully realizing them as human beings in your own mind in a way that you haven't done before, which normalizes meeting them.
Yeah, that's really good advice, I think. And I don't have anything more to say about that topic personally. So I'm going to move on to your Fiverr question. You're ready to do.
Yeah, so this person has painted themselves into a hard little spot. This person hired a seller on Fiverr to do a project. The seller did half the project correctly, but the other half was generated by an AI. They paid $1,000 USD for it, and obviously were not very happy with the person's job. So here's the problem. It was an academic project. They paid this person to cheat for them. And they went and met up with this person on a different social media on WhatsApp and PayPal, where that person could track them down if they felt so inclined.
Yeah.
So that is a liability.
Yeah,
after they reviewed everything,
3 deep.
Yeah. After they reviewed everything thoroughly and realized half the project was entirely fictitious with falsified references generated by an AI, I initially asked them for DOIs to the references. That would be like the links to the references. For a week, I then threatened to report them to the Fiverr. Then they said they would revise the falsified portions of the project. Another week went by, and they got impulsive and filed a complaint to Fiverr because they had to do a whole bunch of that project on their own anyway, because it was going to be due soon. They're not on social media of any sort except for the WhatsApp, Fiverr, and PayPal, and they blocked and deleted their contacts on WhatsApp, Fiverr, and PayPal. However, they still did that. They still had those contacts at the time. Fiverr automatically refunds them the full amount, not just half, and they only wanted half. The person was able to call their personal cell phone number after tracking them down, after being off WhatsApp, to let them know that their account is under review and that they've ruined their Fiverr operation, their career, and that it won't be forgotten. Ominous. We had a further discussion, and in a civil way, we were able to resolve the situation in the moment. I retracted my complaint with Fiverr customer support. The seller thinks the ban will be lifted. Neither of us have heard back. There's a good chance Fiverr already recognizes that this person has been doing shady shit, and the ban is not going to be lifted.
Yeah.
They're worried that if the ban is not lifted, and they truly did ruin this person's Fiverr gig, that they'll seek retaliation. And since they have their real contact information, that retaliation could hit them in their academic reputation, their academic career. It could screw up their relationship with their advisors or what have you. So they learned their lesson. Don't pay someone to do your work, even if they are on the other side of the planet. And they're terrified that they're going to inform the university in revenge. So again, this is someone who has painted themselves into a corner. And what I want to talk about is, how do you how do you hold yourself accountable if you are stressing yourself out with this kind of paranoia and anxiety? How do you make a change in your life where you step away from a habit of cheating? And also, possibly, how do you deal with a partially ruined reputation? A partially screwed up reputation, whether that's you accidentally screwed up someone else's or you screwed up your own.
Sure. Yeah. It's so hard to unpack all of this because there's so much he fucked up here. You know. Hey, Purple, how's it going? Sky, hello. You know, the Fiverr. The initial issue with Fiverr being involved is that you went to Fiverr, paid this much money for an academic paper. First of all, you shouldn't be cheating. Second of all, you shouldn't have gone to Fiverr to cheat. Third, when you did that, you should have taken the work from Fiverr to WhatsApp. That was your third fuck up, because you can't then go back to Fiverr and be like, oh, I mean, obviously he did, and that's another thing, but typically you're going to try to be safe in commissioning work like this through Fiverr. You have to abide by their TOS to use their platform and be protected by their terms, which he already fucked up. And so, I don't know, this reads like someone who's a little frivolous with the money, and because of that got a little too reckless with the reputation as well, not thinking about the consequences. Because, oh wait, you're actually the person who kind of between a rock and a hard place here. He didn't realize that until it was hanging over his head, basically.
Yeah, until it was a sword of Damocles.
Yeah, because he was really always in this position where if he'd gone to a person about cheating, he was already at risk of being found out, and that was already over his head, and he just didn't see it because he was missing it. But yeah, how would you say is, if you have ruined your reputation, what would you say is the first step in repairing that image in some way? Who do you appeal to, and how do you mend? How do you redeem yourself? I guess is the price is there to pay.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I never made a screw up like this in school. To be clear, I did not cheat. However, as a child, as a youth who was underage, as a minor, I was pretty bad. I was a chronic liar. I cheated in high school a lot. I was gifted, so a lot of the cheating was like, I don't want to do this busy work, but that doesn't make it better. It's still cheating. By gifted, I mean bored in class, not like a genius. And it did screw up my relationships with a lot of my teachers in high school and in junior high, where they didn't trust me, they didn't like me. Some of them realized that I had potential and tried to encourage me and were good and were just lovely towards me, and some were overworked and weren't going to put effort into a kid that was screwing shit up for themselves. And it caused problems with my mom as well, as you would imagine. If you get behind several months because you haven't done your work, because you're like, I don't want to cheat necessarily anymore, but I also don't want to do this shit. So there were problems, and I will admit to altering a report card once or twice, as in high school. When you are an adult, there isn't a solution. Once you have screwed up your reputation with other people, once you have screwed up your reputation academically, you have to basically leave. You're going to be on academic probation. You're probably not going to get off academic probation until you graduate. you, in many cases, will be probably better served by moving to a different school or just trying to find a career in something else. That's a hard bullet to bite. That's a hard truth to accept. But as an adult, there isn't a whole lot of room for forgiveness for people that aren't honest. As a result, I do not blame people for trying to conceal this. As a kid, you should come out, you should be honest, you should be forthright in your dealings with your teachers and your parents and the people who are above you. As an adult, the only people you can confide in are your therapists and your closest friends. And it might screw up your relationship with your therapist and your friends. As Kyra is saying, you can't undo what you did, but you can change what you're doing going forward. So this is the next step, is even if you can't be fully honest with it, with your teachers, your professors, with your advisor, because the consequence is just too severe for your career or whatever going forward, you can make a difference to your own life. You need to be honest with your friends. You need to be honest with your therapist. That will allow you to start being more honest with yourself and allow those people to help hold you accountable to your own actions, even if your professor can't. And if you don't do that, holding yourself accountable without other people knowing is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. It's not much different than being an alcoholic and trying to be sober without a support group or without any tools or methods. Yeah. Cheating is a habit and it's an addiction because it is, even though it can be really difficult to cheat sometimes, even if there are systems in place to prevent you cheating, it is ultimately easier. That's why people cheat. They wouldn't cheat if it wasn't easier.
There is some kind of thrill aspect to it as well, the rush of getting away with it.
And the rush. You can be addicted to part of the adrenaline associated with it. And holding yourself accountable is just not going to work. You need tools, you need a support group. Some people can do it. Don't think you're just going to be that person. You don't know that. You need to make room for yourself. You need to make a space for yourself in your relationships where you can actually improve. And if that damages a couple of your relationships, that's the price you have to pay. And ultimately, hopefully you'll come to a point in your life where you are proud that you were able to pay that price. Because it feels better to be honest, and it feels better having been able to improve yourself and be honest with your friends than it does to conceal things from them long term. That's where I am.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I'm not going to blame this person for trying to conceal it. Like I said, school is expensive, and if your academic reputation gets fucked up and you can't graduate, there's not a guarantee you're ever going to be able to go back to school, which means you might not ever be able to have the reputation that the career that you want. And you do have to accept the fact that your old cheated stuff is on your academic record and may exist in some archive somewhere, and that if you become notable or noteworthy in the future, someone might track it down and say, hey, this person cheated in the future. And you need to accept that that's just the consequence of what you did as a kid, as a 20-something or however old you are.
24.
And move forward and say, look, yeah, I did that as a kid, but I've been honest since then, I'm willing to stand by all of my work past X point in time, circa 2022. I don't know when this person, I mean, obviously 2024 for this person. And just make a record for yourself where you can prove that, look, I did screw up. And there are a lot of people, journalists. Fareed Zakaria is one of the people who is a classic. They are a extremely knowledgeable, and for a while were an incredibly influential mainstream foreign policy journalist who was on MSNBC, CNN. And they are in fact extremely intelligent, but they cheated in college and it came out, and it screwed up their career for several years. And he came back. He isn't as influential as he was, and he probably never will be, but he's still smart and people still follow him. And you're just gonna have to accept that that might happen to you.
Yeah, it's a hard weight to bear, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I never got caught cheating or anything like that, but I definitely have cheated before when I was much younger. I've had even infidelity with relationships and stuff like that in some cases, and it's just different person.
It's a hard spot to be in, and it's like it's a place you put yourself in, but it doesn't mean it's not like a really traumatic and difficult spot. A lot of people dismiss the experiences that that dishonest people go through after they have been revealed to be dishonest. And for a lot of people, yes, like, okay, cut that person out of your life. Like, you don't have to sympathize with them. But that person is going to go through a lot of hardship as a result of that. And it's up to the people around them who decide to stick with them to get them through it and make that and help them come through it as a better person. And if you have a friend who has a situation like that, where they paint themselves into a corner, like with this, I'd encourage you to stick by them and help them become better. Now, obviously, if you have your own shit going on, if you have your own trauma, if you have a whole bunch of shit that you simply do not have time and the emotional bandwidth, don't put yourself out for them. Don't put yourself out for anyone if you don't have the emotional bandwidth.
Bandwidth, you gotta measure that and keep track of it. Like, that's vital.
Yeah. And like, I'd encourage a lot of people to stick their necks out there and help other people, but a lot of people are not in a place where they can do that. But if you are, don't abandon friends just because they've really fucked themselves over. Those people can improve themselves. Those people can become better people. Now, if they're abusive, that's different. There are circumstances where people have to learn their lessons on their own.
Caught up on chat here. Purple, I had a friend at undergrad who cheated off me. The professor spoke, so he took full responsibility and switched majors, but I don't think she graduated. Yikes. Yeah, that's... I mean, that's pretty much what Graham was warning about, Yeah,
that's something that can happen. And sometimes you just screw yourself over and you can't graduate. But guess what? You did learn a lesson, right? You can move forward from that and be like, hey, I screwed up. I wasted a lot of money. I wasted a bunch of my time. But I did learn a lesson. And it did put me in a space where I could be more honest with my colleagues and my peers in the future and whatever future career that I have. It did put me in a place where I can be more honest and more open with my friends and with my partners in the future. Like, a lot of people, I'd say people who haven't gone through that sort of trauma aren't going to share that, like, oh yeah, I've gone through that where I've been caught and it was super traumatic and it was really bad. I went through that as a kid, and I didn't face a whole lot of consequences because I was a kid, and so I didn't face a whole lot of like interpersonal consequences because I was a kid, and so people like just dealt with it and helped me. But it was still traumatic, and I wasn't a rebellious kid, but I still fought with my mom for years and years, and it was over that. And that was a really difficult spot in my life. But it put me in a space where I could be honest and tell people about this and be open about the sort of trauma that I went through in the moment. And it allowed me to self-improve. And it put me in a space where I could do university without really fucking myself over. So in a humorous way, here's my advice. If you're gonna cheat, do it in high school. Learn the lesson early.
Yeah.
Learn to be honest early. And if you're 24, learn to be honest now instead of when you're 30.
Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was gonna say too, before we move on to more chat stuff, about being held accountable, just in general. It's really good to be held accountable by someone who actually cares than just some dickhead or whatever. Because, like, at my job, even, I've been in this company 3 years now. I work with, right? I work from home. I work and do chat. I have a really easy situation in my job. It's really nice. Really like it. But over those 3 years, I've had at least 2 or 3 occasions where my metrics were not good, or I was fucking off, or I was getting in trouble for this, or getting in trouble for that. And it came to a head where I was like near my final like write-up, be gone, and talking to like the VP or like the director of the company or like the center, and like gotta stop this. Like, you have to stop, or we're gonna have to like let you go. Like, we know that you're good at what you do when you're doing it, but you know what you're doing. You have to stop, kind of thing. Like, very dad-like. And I was like, I mean, you're right. You know, and I was always remorseful and everything like that. And I had more problems in different ways over time. I'm now at a better place in general. Even just the other day, I had a meeting where they tried to write me up for something, and it was the actual client that I worked for, not the center, but the client did the write-up because they caught something. They said that I didn't do something when I did it. And I fought back about it when I was confronted about it, and my supervisor and her supervisor looked over it, found that I did do the thing. I was in the right. I didn't get the write-up, and they contested and everything like that. And it was fine. But that came with a lot of like working really hard to get that kind of relationship with my boss and stuff, and have
to mend bridges.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, you know, like, because the last time that I really fucked up bad and had a whole issue with a customer, I got put on the phones for a few months, and that was, you know, leading up to December of last year, from like August to December or something like that. Those months were hellish to me. I don't even remember them that much, because I was so like miserable doing the phone all the time. But I did it so well that even with my significantly more like break time that I was taking, help, you know, take care of my wife and stuff, which has always been an ongoing thing, struggle with them, I was still doing more calls per hour than anyone else. Yeah. Even with those modifications. So when I did everything else and like really put my effort in, they're like, okay, you proved yourself, you can come back to chat, that's fine, whatever. And yeah, it's worth it to put in the effort. It's fulfilling, satisfying, and do it, but it takes a lot. I agree with Kyra. You know, doing the accountability, you should be able to do it for yourself if you don't have someone like that. And that, I think, also is a skill, but I agree with them saying don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
You don't need to sugarcoat it. There's no need
Don't
to.
gaslight yourself.
Yeah, you can't really. You're gonna do yourself a disservice by being like, oh well, it maybe not so bad. Just know what you're doing. You know what the problem was. You have a resolution. Make the resolution. People asking a question of being like, why is it so difficult for people to hold ourselves accountable? And Kyra's response, don't like ourselves as the villain. Doesn't rub our ego the right way. It hurts. We don't naturally want to see ourselves as guilty. Makes sense, but unfortunately, sometimes you are the person who did the bad thing. Unfortunately, you do need to
That's why
accept
no one
that.
has "we are the baddies" moments, even though it feels like they really should.
Yeah.
And they don't.
I the
and you're
bad
like,
person all the time. Yeah.
Because if this is really obvious, but
yeah, because it's like extra credit in a way that people that need it don't do it, and people that don't need it do it.
Yeah.
People who are asking that question, are we the baddies, usually aren't that bad. It's a very rare situation where it is the case. It takes learning and growth to do, 100%. But over time, obviously there are most to this, but for most people in most circumstances, just working to improve going forward is enough. Growing pains as you get there, and growing pains, I'm so glad you said that. Growing pains is so important to realize is the thing. Like there's no growth of the fire of conflict. It has to be that fire. You've got to get the burns and the pains and the scars to show that you've grown. Otherwise, you have no context with which you've done that.
And sometimes
it
means you have a miserable couple of years.
For sure, yeah. Like the metamorphosis you go through can be agonizing, and honestly, sometimes that gives you more of an appreciation for that change, that metamorphosis, that growth. Be like, I went through so much to get here, but I did it. Here I am, top of the mountain, kind of thing,
Yeah. For instance, so again, to reference my relationship with my mom. As a kid, I fought a lot. We did a lot of yelling. There was a lot of hard feelings, and there was not much trust. But as I improved, as I fixed myself, as I worked harder, as I became more honest with myself and with others, my relationship with my mom changed completely. And it evolved as I evolved. And because I was in my adolescence and I was growing up, it evolved from me being an untrustworthy, spoiled kid to me being a fellow adult. And as a result, I have a relationship with my mom where I'm not a kid. I'm a peer. We are friends. And that's a really rare thing. And I might not have had that if I hadn't confronted that part of myself as soon as I did. And I think I probably would have regretted that for the rest of my life. But because I did it, I have this great relationship with my mom where I can just be a friend with her and she can be my friend instead of me being the kid who's living at home and her being the parent.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do get you get a payout effectively in self-growth, in interpersonal growth. You get a payout by confronting those parts of yourself. It's worth it.
Yeah. Sometimes
it's not
even the exploration of inner demons. Yeah. Like sometimes exploration of inner demons and stuff doesn't even mean you have to vanquish them, but at least acknowledge them and try to work with them in some way if possible.
Yeah, you might still struggle.
That way. Yeah, you're still gonna have the struggle, but if you can at least compromise or have some kind of way to not get a disorderly thing, because disorders only really become disorders properly when they start to affect your life. But if you can acknowledge a problem with yourself or a flaw of some kind or this or that, you just acknowledge that and you take it into account and kind of work with it. Try to see how you can kind of maneuver with it to compensate. You know, gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So, not to accuse anyone of anything,
Sure.
I think a pretty funny example is Simple Flips, if you're familiar with Simple Flips. He is a chronic gaslighter liar. But what he does is he does it as comedy. That's his sense of humor. He tells really silly jokes in races, video game races. He'll just like tell someone, "Oh, I'm on level XYZ." He's not on level XYZ. He's never on level XYZ. He's 2 levels behind, or sometimes he's like 10 levels ahead. I don't want to project anything on him. I don't know about his life or his history. But that is part of him. He has that habit, and he channels it into something that's hilarious and fun and wholesome. And you can take those things and be like, look, I'm a chronic liar. I don't lie when it matters. I get that out of me in funny ways. Yeah. I get that out of me in practical joke ways. I don't do it to hurt people. I don't do it to cheat myself out of proper work. You can make those demons work for you if you are careful.
Yeah.
You don't have to just fix it. You can accept part of yourself and make it a boon.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that every blessing has to be a curse intrinsically, and vice versa. It has to be. It's just nature of the beast, and it's a matter of how you tame it.
I think the other part of this whole post here is stay safe online, folks.
Yeah.
Don't take things off of a platform if you're doing commissions through a platform. Don't share a personal account with a stranger unless you really have a reason to trust that stranger. Money is not a reason. If you gave that person $1,000, that is not a reason to trust them. They can still fuck you over. They can still hurt you.
For sure. Absolutely.
Be safe online.
Yeah. Like, if you want to throw away $1,000 and just dip on the whole thing, and just fucking ghost it, I mean, that's your prerogative if you so choose. I, again, would be gobsmacked. But I can't imagine going into this with $1,000 and not doing the due diligence of making sure there's no way I'm gonna get fucked out of this money, you know? If you're going to do it right. Don't fucking be reckless like this. That's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Are going to cheat, at least make it a challenge
you're
for yourself.
Honestly, you're better off if you're gonna cheat like this on an essay or whatever. You're better off copy pasting and rewriting shit and being caught by an AI plagiarism detector than you are risking yourself. That's my opinion.
Absolutely.
And frankly, you're gonna get more out of you're gonna get more out of in terms of like learning the content out of copy pasting and retyping it in a different way than you are out of paying someone to do it or running it through a language model.
And in this case, he ended up having to fucking do it anyway.
Yeah, you can cheat in a slightly less lazy way and still give yourself a little bit of like a little bit of learning, just a little bit as a treat.
And this reminded me of something. Speaking of cheating, it's not always intrinsically just a test or something, but cheating on chores as a kid. You ever done that? Like, for instance,
my
vacuuming the carpet, like vacuuming the carpet or whatever, and like not plugging in the vacuum for whatever reason. You're still doing the fucking motion, but it's not on. And it's like, what are we doing? What kind of rebellion is this? You're still doing it, but you're doing it just to not do it. Like, putting in just enough effort to, like, it's so crazy. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's cringe. It's cringe, is what you're
So
doing.
cringe. It's yeah, it really is. It really
Yeah,
is.
here's one of the things is the reason I became that person as a teenager is because my mom, not to put this all on my mom, but my mom has acknowledged this herself. She did not hold me accountable when I cheated on shit like chores. She knew that I didn't do something. She just was like, okay, whatever. You really do have to hold people accountable on little things. Because it can evolve into something worse. And the reason she didn't hold me accountable is because she had freaking lupus and fibromyalgia, and she had work, and she was working from home, and she was working like 12 hours a day, and there's no way that she was going to be able to actually hold me accountable and be a parent the way she wanted to.
Right.
But yeah. What are you cramming me about, Kyra? Buddy, pal.
I do like the line here. Friendly people still hurt people. Kyra, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good way to phrase it. Friendly people, not always friends. Friends and friendly people are not the same.
Yep, you can be
very.
You will encounter very friendly scammers online.
Just in general,
who are still going to steal $20,000 from you if they can help it.
Yeah, or just in general, people who will just kind of play as if they're your friend, but they're just being friendly. And when it's time to actually do friend things, then they're not there. You know, that kind of thing. Like, and that's going to be very subjective, so you can't really condemn people over that kind of perception. But I think that's a whole topic for another time. In general.
Oh. Want to move on for now?
I think we should, yes, absolutely. This is a fun one to me. I think this is hilarious. I think this is hilarious. This unpacks really nicely. What's an appropriate thing to say in response to being asked? Quote, is my outfit too booby? By a female colleague. I was asked by my manager recently. I'm the only guy in an all-woman office, and she wanted my opinion. I was thrown off by the bizarre question, so just said, it's fine. And wow, this is like a minefield, you know? It just
yeah, so there's two spots to this. There's the don't second guess things. Your manager is being casual with you. That's sometimes a privilege. The other spot is, are they sexually harassing you?
We're getting there, Kyra.
You can still be sexually harassed as a guy.
Yeah, please.
But they could also just be flirting with you in a way that you appreciate. You really do gotta figure out on your own where you stand.
Yeah, it's really hard to navigate, and we're using the base context here. We're gonna unpack more here when I scroll down in a minute. But
you can have an unethical relationship with your manager if you want. I'm not gonna argue, but
and that was as a quick side note, that was one of the things that I lost. Was one of the questions I lost that was deleted by Reddit or whatever. Was it was deleted by this one was the poster, I think, deleted it for whatever reason, being like, hey, I really want to have a relationship with my boss, but that's not allowed by the company. Should I quit my job to be with my boss? Which I
think if your boss is into it, yes.
Yeah, if you can get confirmation somehow,
are more important than your career.
Yeah, but yeah, no. So this is my outfit too booby. I have had managers like this. I know this is like the too comfortable female manager. Yeah, who is just like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. It's like all kind of like wanting everything all the time and like being overly casual and like touchy and like, yeah, I know the vibe. And being the only guy in an all-woman office, ooh, man. Let's explore why that's the case. Where's my boss? I think am I saying she's dressed hot, but for adults I feel, yeah. most of the time, and that's most of the time I think is fair. Good, but let's see here. So I don't know. Let me go ask HR. My manager is the HR manager. I work in HR. Wow.
Oh.
Yikes. Yeah.
So what is this Vixen? What are the responses to this Vixen person? Because I feel like I want to see.
Vixen, I'm not judging that with a question on the 10-foot pole, which is honestly that should have been the response. That's the perfect HR response to an HR manager above you. Nope. Not touching it.
Yeah. I think the answer to this question is don't make me get out the form, lady.
Yeah.
I will fill it out. And you're gonna have to write yourself up. And I'm not gonna be there for it.
Yeah. I think you look very professional. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think you look professional.
I think you look very professional. Yeah, it's good. Why don't they have a female representative as well? You know?
Now, if they are the HR manager, they could just be asking, is my outfit violating HR, you think? Not in a flirting way. Maybe they're just kind of weirdo. And they're trying to ask a professional question, like as a peer, as a fellow in the HR department. You're the guy. You're the one you're the straight man. You're the one who's sensitive to this. Is this too much?
Yeah, because it is a valid fear. You know, that is
a valid question. It's a phrasing problem.
Yeah, for sure.
As Kyra is saying, yeah.
Yeah, not great.
So definitely clarify with her. You could come back the next week and be like, I think I might have misinterpreted. Were you flirting? Or were you trying to just ask a question as a fellow HR professional?
It's this one pulled up. We're not gonna move to this one just yet, but I need to make sure it's there. There we go. I feel like that question should have been asked to a friend for leaving home and going to the office. 100%. Like you could have messaged somebody, messaged your girlfriend or whatever. You know, been like, hey, is this too much? I mean, obviously, to your point about him being the only man, you're like the straight man. What's your opinion? I don't know. It definitely, it's just the phrasing. I think it boils down to the phrasing. She shouldn't have said it like that. I mean, I think there's no harm, no foul. Also here, it wasn't great. No, it wasn't ideal by any means. Lots of things to learn in this area, but she asked the question. He said it's fine. It's fine. You did fine. I think that's. You just say it's fine and fucking leave. Fucking go outdoors immediately.
Take a smoke break if you smoke.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't smoke, take a smoke break anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Consider it a cigarette too, after bed.
He could have been married. Good point. Also, Kyra. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really depends on this person's circumstance.
Yeah, it was being so vague. He said it was fine, and since he is here, I mean, he just wanted to make sure that what he said was fine. What could have been said better? But yeah, no, him being in HR, that's crazy. Her being,
yeah, that's a tangle of possible issues. It sounds like it was nothing ultimately, but good luck.
Yeah, in alternate universe, him is fucking suffering right now for sure. Yeah, I think we have the two more to go through. We can unpack that one kind of quickly. We have this one to go over, and then the one rabbit hole one to finish up on. We want to take a quick break at the hour mark here, get some water and stuff.
Before we go down before we do our last one, and then go down a rabbit hole.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm gonna do
All right, we'll be right back.
To everyone in chat, my cat says hello. And is trying to press buttons on my keyboard.
Let them cook. Let them speak. Don't censor them.
He's doing his best.
Hello, cat. Yes, hello, cat. All right, BRB, everybody. We'll be back.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you in just a moment for part 2. Hello, everyone.
Welcome back. Um, so yeah, we have one more solid decent one to go into here. This is about cheating and fidelity, like we mentioned only vaguely earlier, in a different light. So cheating has kind of been a big theme, along with the workplace stuff, and then we're gonna wrap it up with a big saga, if you want to call it that, of just yikes on bikes. We'll get into that shortly. But go ahead, read us off. What's going on here?
Yeah. So this one is a pretty basic situation. A woman here who's 21 found out their husband has been cheating on her because he downloaded a dating app and had been texting someone explicit photos. Turned out that was a scam. Again, be safe online. And they threatened to send the photos to a family if he didn't pay. He bought an Apple Card to send this person money, and luckily he didn't, so the family didn't lose any money. They both made a report to the police mutually, and as he did so, she packed up her bags and left for her parents' house, as you might imagine. She doesn't really know how to feel, because she feels like she was lied to, obviously. Even though that person that he was cheating with her was a scam and a catfish, he was still trying to cheat on her, even if it was texting. In her mind, she thinks maybe texting is not cheating yet, and maybe it's just like edging on cheating. It's cheating. So this person, she has no clue what to do now or how to trust her husband, or that he won't do it again. Should she file for a divorce? Should she try to make it work? Nothing had ever happened before, and it came out of the blue. Is she dumb for thinking that everything was fine? So she came back and clarified after people commented. She was married at 19, so only 2 years before this, or a year and a bit before this. They'd been married for a year. So they're both pretty young. They're immature. They are apparently high school sweethearts and known each other for 6 years. There have been no cheating problems before that, during high school or anything like that. Their finances have been separate in the meantime, so pretty much the only problem is the fact that they live together, there's a lease, and that they share pets. So the main issue here is, what do you do when you are in a growing relationship, when you are both immature, and it turns out that maybe your partner is having doubts and they're exploring other things, or they're just being dishonest with you, or what have you. Especially when it's a long-standing relationship like this. But it's a long-standing relationship that developed in a different time, a very, very different time in their lives. Again, this person, their finances are separate. The only thing they share is their lease and their pets. They don't have kids. So the only thing that is at risk here is their relationship going forward. However, they both have a lot of room to mature. And they both have a lot of opportunity to work together. So, what do you think? So here's Kyra right away.
Yeah, us versus the problem as a quick line like that. That one excerpt from everything you said right there, Kyra, hits really hard. Like everything else you said, it's great. If you feel like it's gonna work, give it a shot. If you don't feel like it's gonna work, let him go. Let's move on. All very valid. But if you can't afford it and like doing therapy and stuff, also good. But choosing to approach things as a us versus the problem situation, that's exactly something that someone this age needs to hear, for sure, I
Yeah.
think.
Not
You
an us
know,
versus
it's
them problem, an us versus
right,
the problem.
right. Because you're doing this together. Everything you're facing from here, even from when you got married, is going to be you and him versus everything else in the world. No matter what it is, whether you're allies with that or whatever. There's so many dynamics at play, but you have to go through it with them. So very
Mm,
good. I think it's a very good thing to mention. On that note, though, it's really easy to feel not pity for her, but be like, damn, that really sucks. Not just because of being cheated on, but she's doing everything right, theoretically and practically. I mean, she kept everything separate. She had that kind of foresight. She
mm-hmm.
admits that it was going to be hard. She knew it was going to be difficult for them being high school sweethearts, and has already faced adversity to that. People saying, "Oh, you're stupid for that," or whatever, blah blah blah. She's still putting the effort in and showing up every day to do it. Isn't complaining about it. Is working, or he's keeping finances separate. I assume she's got income of some kind, whatever the case.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last line, especially, I have the pets with me at my parents' house, and we're enjoying the fresh air and finding peace. Like, what a grounded individual.
Mm-hmm.
you know and still she's being punished in some way, you might say, for this. And that's really easy to be like, man, that sucks. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can do everything right, and you have this you're doing right, and this you're doing right, and this you're doing right, but the person you trusted hits you with a blind shot, like hits you in the blind spot, and you're like, what the fuck, I thought I could trust you to not be an asshole.
Yeah.
Kind of fucking
So
my shit up now.
I'm gonna extrapolate a little bit because she's saying that their finances are separate. He bought an Apple Card to send the person.
Hmm.
She didn't find out that he was trying to cheat on her because, like, she saw an Apple Card in their shared finances.
Hmm.
It sounds like there's a very real possibility she found out because this guy bought an Apple Card and then thought, you know what, this seems more shady even than I have originally realized when it became clear it was a scam. Maybe I should talk to someone about it. If that's the case, and he came out to her and said, hey, I've been being a little shit. And I almost made a big mistake. Can you help me deal with this problem through the police and stuff?
Hmm.
If that is the case, it sounds like there's a good platform for you to leap off from on the shared journey to mend your relationship, to be proper partners with each other, to be cooperative and honest with each other in your relationship for moving forward. I think one of the biggest difficulties with high school sweetheart relationships is, like I said, they met each other in and grew to know each other in a very different stage of their lives. And even when you're living with someone, sometimes especially if you're living with someone, it can be easy to lose track of each other, where you see this person change incrementally day by day, and as a result, you don't notice them change at all. You don't know that they've matured. You don't realize how they've matured. But once you start being honest with each other, you are able to sort of re-meet in the middle. If he came out and was honest with her about the situation with her, I think that's a really great opportunity for them to mature together, to figure this out. And even if ultimately they decide, okay, we've grown past each other, or I grew faster than you did and you still have growing to do and I can't be with you right now, they still have an opportunity to figure that out in a healthy way. And I'd strongly encourage her to do that if she can. And if you're in a situation like this, for sure, if they've made a step towards you and you feel betrayed, if they made the step, you're not obligated to accept that olive branch necessarily. But that's a big deal for them to do that. To like we mentioned in that other in the cheating question, coming out and being honest with yourself and confronting that you made a mistake is a really hard thing. And it's not the hardest thing necessarily. The hardest thing is actually like turning your life around and becoming better. But it's a big step, and I'd encourage honoring that step and respecting it and giving it a shot.
Yeah, if you feel like that's the right thing to do, I'm always gonna kind of echo something my mom kind of drilled into me when I was younger, and this has been its own blessing and curse situation. Not everyone's gonna agree with this, but do what feels good and what feels right to you. You know, that's gonna change all the time, be very subjective, but that's how I've kind of approached things. Not wholly intuitively, I've learned over time to temper it with some practicality and some knowledge and like previous experience and shit like that, but typically if I have a good feeling about somebody, I pursue that if I can. Like, not like out of pocket or whatever, but just give that attention until it stops being something that feels good or feels right.
Yeah. So Kyra here is she's essentially done mentioned and brought up pretty much the opposite philosophy. And it's not really opposite, but there are
Adjacent.
There are two sort of big competing, seemingly publicly competing philosophies when it comes to managing relationships. There's the old style one, which is you have to work with your partner no matter what, which is unhealthy. You have to be able to establish boundaries.
Right.
And there's the new one, which is the new extreme, which is if they're bad for you, if they've done something bad to you, cut them off. So Kyra has not done that. She's brought up the reasonable middle ground, which is you need to also prioritize your own psyche. If you're in a space where you can pursue mending the relationship, you should do that. If you're not in that space, do not force it.
Absolutely.
And there's a constant it's like a culture war thing, typically between boomers and zoomers, or even Gen Alpha, where boomers are like, oh, these kids, they're just cutting each other off left and right. They're just ruining their relationships because they can't manage to confront their interpersonal trauma. They're all so soft. And there is a certain subsection of particularly Tumblr kids who are like 16 who have really like embraced in an unhealthy way the cut people off immediately sort of dynamic, which is just harmful. I think not just to the person you're cutting out of your life. Like, this is not a not all men situation, but this is a thing where you're not granting yourself an opportunity to grow from mending a relationship or for deeply exploring why relationship fell apart. That doesn't have to be a conflict. You can have a healthy middle ground. I think Kyra agrees with me. Yeah. It's definitely a dramatic sort of situation right now, where that new philosophy is kind of just coming into its own, but it really is coming into its own among a lot of really immature people on Tumblr and shit, and they're kind of making it the worst thing it could be rather than here's how to set healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Everything in moderation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, again, it's just like if it feels like you really need to. Like, sometimes it's difficult for me to preach that because I'm someone who suffers from being bipolar. So I have
Mm-hmm.
mania out the wazoo when I have mania. And boy howdy, this past month I've had mania, let me tell you. Been manic as fuck. Um, and with that I lost some friends, and that wasn't pretty. But I also reconnected with some people, had some good moments with like reconciliation and kind of rejuvenation of old friendships.
Yeah.
At the same
It's
time,
especially
so
shitty when it's like that's so unfair when you have a disorder that is affecting you and it's like I can't deal with your disorder. Okay,
yeah,
you can
I
make a
mean,
boundary, you can cut people off, you can
yeah.
say, look, I can't deal with you when you're like this.
Well, in this
To
case,
really
it
just cut the
was
friendship off completely, I feel is like it's unfair and cruel sometimes.
yeah, and there are cases like that. My case wasn't exactly like that. It's only tangentially related because while I was manic, I was in the process of doing a lot of thinking and kind of change. You do drastic changes when you're manic.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was like, you know what? There's been a point of contention I've had for a long time about bringing this person back to my community. I did that thing. Person who I was, the people who I was, not people who I was kind of appeasing by not interacting with that person more and bringing him back, left immediately without saying anything first, and that was kind of the thing. I'm only bringing it up like kind of, but not really, because I don't want to talk about it too much. But just in general, like, yeah, they just left. Like after we'd been friends and stuff for quite a while,
Mm-hmm.
or friends, quote unquote. It goes back to the thing I said about friends versus friendly.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of condemned me for it without really trying to have a conversation. And
Yeah.
the worst part of it, acting like I should have consulted them about it before bringing them back. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
person wasn't a mod or whatever. They're not admins. They're not even really active. They weren't even really active in my Discord and shit like that. They were just there. And
Yeah.
then to be like, you should have consulted us. Like,
Yeah.
really gross. I
Yes.
really can't stand
Sometimes
that. The obligation of like social
yes, sometimes
dynamics.
there's a breach of trust, but not every breach of trust is that big of a deal. You can
Yeah.
forgive some things. This is
You don't have to
obviously
like
a big
everyone in your
one.
friend group.
This thing on
In
the
friends
advice
group.
is obviously a much bigger one. But
Yeah.
there are circumstances where you can just like, oh, they fucked up a little bit in terms of their interaction with me specifically.
Yeah.
But I can maybe give them some allowances because
Yeah.
they're living their own life.
Yeah. Like at the same time, I don't hold it against them. And don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, I'm not condemning them in turn. It was just something that was kind of like, okay, all right, well, I guess it was never gonna work out between us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's best we just
And
go
that
our own
and that I
ways.
think applies to the situation here is if she really can't bring herself to work with her husband, even if he had presented this to her willingly.
Hmm.
If she really can't do it, well then she's not in a mental space where she can do it.
Yeah.
And like it would be lovely if people were in a mental space where they could work with people who breached their trust all the time. It would be lovely if the people who breached people's trust could come out and be honest with it all the time. And it would be lovely if those things could mutually happen and mutually work together and interact in such a way to create a reinforced and more powerful and stronger relationship all the time. But that's not life. You do have to sometimes uh, just end things.
Yeah. For what it's worth, she didn't say anything about him really. We have no
No,
context on what kind of person he is, and
no,
how
we do
like
not know.
Yeah, there's no information on him at all here, which is
He could
fine.
have been trying to cheat with someone who was presenting themselves as underage for all we know.
Yeah, we have no idea the context really about how bad it was, or how much he did, or whatever. And again, I respect that about her. And that all of that with her being as grounded as she is and like down to earth and kind of like in touch, being self aware and stuff like that. I have full faith that if she wanted to salvage this, she absolutely could, absolutely. But I'm not sure about him because of his weakness here. And again, no context on him, so maybe he is just a guy who was like, that was how he saw his father did it, and he's just kind of doing the social norm thing of like, this is how it goes, or this is like something I'm trying to explore. To what you said earlier, something I don't want to talk about. There's so many different things that could be possible where it could have been an honest thing and like he just fucked up and he regrets it.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be up to her. It's gonna be a lot of work to forgive that and move on for sure.
Yeah.
That loose ends.
And sometimes,
Kyra says, "Go ahead."
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sometimes that process of figuring out, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to work with this person and meet them halfway? Sometimes that process can be a long one.
Yeah,
If that
it's like
person
asking
is
for a
willing to
commitment
wait,
and a commitment.
yeah, if that person is willing to wait for you to think through it, then make them wait. And otherwise, make them wait anyway. You have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, it is easier to redeem somebody when they're paying the price to get redeemed. It is easier, I think. They're okay. Well, if you really are sorry, prove it, kind of thing. Let's see how sorry you really are. But Kyra says, in that loose sense, I also agree with Graham and allowances. It's determining, is this something I'm willing to work with this person on and meet them halfway, or is this non-negotiable, a deal breaker? Friends I heard is just too much. As if her portion last year, I kept one relationship and lost another because of it. It's hard. Yeah, it is. It's hard, and I don't regret it at all. When I've been manic and made decisions like that, usually I've come to appreciate my mania because I do destructive things when I'm manic. I know that. I know that I try to refrain a little bit, kind of pull it back, so I'm not just being reckless with my words and stuff like that. But making the move and then taking the confrontation and grappling with it head on, I was happy to use my mania that way. In terms of like what we mentioned earlier about taming your demons a little bit.
Yeah.
I was happy to do that. I'd much rather that anyway than the depression part of it, because that part of being bipolar is definitely for me the worst. Nothing gets done. It's all stagnation, and the mania it's another extreme, but we're getting things done. We're on the roller coaster. Hey, fuck it, my hands are up. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
So,
yes, there is a time sometimes where you can be too disruptive to yourself.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of people don't disrupt their own lives at all, even when they really need to. Making those steps is really valuable. It can really throw a lot of things into perspective and allow you to make changes that sometimes you didn't even realize you need to make.
Yeah.
Ad.
Or has an ad, which is actually a good time. I have to quickly step away. I'll be 1 second. Not that long.
What? So for all the people who don't have ads, if there's any of you, we're gonna take a very short break as Hestia deals with some stuff, and as some of the people who are on ads get off ads. It is warm in my apartment, everyone. Maybe a little too warm. Also, I have Victoria sponge cake to eat for dessert, and I'm very excited. I already had some for breakfast, and I'm gonna have more. I'm not guilty. Hello. While you were gone, Hestia has stepped away to deal with a thing real quick, and then when she is back, I'm gonna ask us to draw an overarching lesson from, I think, everything that we've learned today, or that we've talked about, what we think is maybe the main takeaway. And then we're going to approach our rabbit hole for the month, which is going to be the particularly dramatic post.
Yes. I'm back. Okay.
Yeah, so before we move on to our rabbit hole, I want us to just do a little takeaway
Yes.
and
There's one more
decide
thing I
what's
want
our
to
lesson.
quickly address about what Kyra said here before we
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
go for it.
Happy to do that. But there was something you said, Kyra, there. Turn off the noise and you listen to yourself. That resonates particularly right now because that whole excerpt there, what you said, applies to a friend of mine I was talking to. I'm not going to go into what he is going through right now, but the gist of it is that there's a perception of everyone else versus how he sees himself, and there's a big conflict there about he's not feeling seen or heard over it. And a lot of the conflict revolves around everyone else seeing him this way. And so there's kind of the echoing thing, am I making the right decision here? Am I doing the right thing? What do I need to do to be seen or heard? What do I need to do? How do I do that when everyone's so obsessed with putting me in this box, you know?
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, do you know the answer to the question who you are? Like, can you really answer that outside of the context of everything else? If it's just you in a field in the middle of nowhere, under the stars, do you know your place? Do you know where you stand? Do you know what really is inside you? And that's kind of, I was like,
That's
that's
a
your
tough
homework.
question,
Go
bro.
do that. It is.
Yeah.
It's hard for anybody, but at our age, which is, he's a peer, I would say, around my age, is something you have to grapple with that. You have to go and be a person that can understand where you sit in the universe, because without that, you don't have the context for anybody else and prove them otherwise. You're just letting someone
Yeah.
else imprint on you. You can't really fight back, to say, no, I'm this and this and this. You have to have these conversations where you speak for your morals and your principles and like stand up for this and that, because if you don't, nobody else is going to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people simply don't self-examine until they're very old, if they ever do.
Yes.
A lot of people could stand to, I don't know, meditate in the
Fast track
woods
it a
for a
little bit.
bit.
Yeah, do some shrooms or something. Shake it up.
Yeah. Whatever you need to do to figure yourself out.
Yeah. And that is a joke, for the record. I have done things like that, but I'm not gonna like wildly advocate for anyone to do that. If you know, like, if you are going to do them, you don't need me to tell you to do them. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say that.
Do what
Don't
you
worry
want.
about it. And do your thing. But yeah,
So what do you think
100%.
is our takeaway is for you? What do you think is get to know
Well, there's a
yourself?
lot. Yeah, I think that's been an echoing theme here. Because a lot of it deals with insecurity, the cheating, insecurity to pass, the cheating, insecurity to communicate with your partner, to kind of um, to figure things out so you don't have to cheat on them. If you have some kind of other needs or wants or desires, being honest with yourself
Mm-hmm.
about them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Insecurity at work, insecurity of like, did I say the right thing? Lots of insecurity, kind of, in circling around here, I think.
Yeah.
And so, to kind of face insecurity and the fear, second guessing yourself, gaslighting yourself, as you put it at one point, you gotta be kind to yourself and be honest with yourself. Being honest, being vulnerable to your own honesty, your own brutal, like, candid honesty about yourself. That
Mm-hmm.
self-examination can and will carry you very far, professionally, like romantically, personally, all of it. Like, I really can't stress enough how much people respect you to the point where they're like almost speechless, but they don't know what to say if you're just vulnerable and honest with them. Just completely. It's not. I'm not saying it's gonna be easy by any means, but if you can do that, if you can manage even one interaction where you're honest with somebody in a vulnerable way, they'll see you in a new light, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. There is a thing that happens in the course of going through cognitive dissonance, where you're lying to yourself, where you're holding one position and seeing something in real life that conflict, and you're holding that one position anyway. People do the thing where they lie to themselves, where they don't just lie to themselves in the sense where they don't know what the truth is, but they kind of hold the truth in a little box right behind their thoughts. And they don't really narrate that. Like, they don't voice those words mentally, but they know them mentally in the moment. If you're in a spot where you are struggling with acknowledging your own failings, or acknowledging that you need to set a boundary, or you need to do a thing, or you need to cut someone out, or you need to confront something, like you need to confront your trauma, you need to go seek therapy, you need to acknowledge you're trans, you need to... The first step is voicing those thoughts mentally. Really think those words deliberately. Even if you don't act on them, even if right after you continue trying to deceive yourself, keep trying to voice those words and keep trying to be honest with yourself bit by bit. If you're a bigot and you realize it and you try not to be, if like you grew up in the Deep South and you are try not to be racist, but you're racist all the time anyway, just culturally, acknowledge those parts of you. Say it out loud in your brain. Say it out loud in your apartment. I have this flaw. And that's your first step to actually confronting it and fixing it. And I don't mean that in a trivial sense of like the first step to fixing a problem is acknowledging you have it. I mean like actually just say it, even if you're like really self-gaslighting and you even don't want to acknowledge it. Just say it, just as like on a lark, even if you're pretending you're joking to yourself. Just say it out loud.
Even if just to prove you aren't stubborn.
And just to prove you're not stubborn. To prove that well, I could say a thing to myself, it's not a big deal, whatever, right? You have nothing to hide from yourself. And if that's true, you can say shit to yourself that's a lie without screwing your mental up. But if it's not true, then saying it out loud is going to help you figure yourself out. And it really is a very small baby step, but it's important to take.
Yeah, it really is. That kind of goes back into,
so many people have cognitive dissonance where they can't even do that. Blah.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to look in the mirror sometimes and really see that kind of thing. It makes you not want to look.
It's so hard.
Yeah, it's like the dysphoric thing, which I've had recently actually playing. I don't know if I explained this to you explicitly, but playing D&D fucked me up to that degree. That's why we did the advice show in the first place, because I was like playing this paladin being like, I gotta do better. Like, fuck, if she can fucking help people and I can play this character helping people like that, I gotta do something. Like, there's gotta be something here I can do. Something's gotta give, and that's what Kyra was saying too. That kind of theme has been my whole month. It feels like spring. Something's gotta give. Foundation, the rebirth. But yeah, another thing here, Purple, I have more of a problem with oversharing. I relate to that. I don't know about y'all, but I have this similar problem sometimes with oversharing, not knowing where the boundary is, and being like, I think that actually almost goes into lampshading. Because lampshading is the whole thing where you're taking control of your own insecurity by being honest about it up front, which is, I think, valid to a degree, to a point, but it is kind of a difficult thing to navigate with new people, especially first impressions when it comes to lampshading on people. That can be
like I can say, like I've mentioned earlier, I could say, oh, I was a chronic liar as a kid. Oh, I had a bit of a god complex as a kid too. That's gonna turn people off. People are gonna be like, no, I don't want to fucking get away from me, you weirdo. I don't care if you've improved. That's a weird thing to start out with.
Yep, for sure.
And really, it depends on what kind of relationships you want. There are gonna be people that they don't want to hear that shit. They want surface relationships, and they're comfy with that. If they're comfy with that and they don't want anything beyond a surface relationship, I mean, it goes back to our first question. They can draw that boundary and just leave them alone. You don't have to be friends with everyone.
Yeah.
I think it's honestly, well, it's a weird spot to be in, because in capitalism, being an oversharer like that can screw you out of job opportunities or whatever. And so, yeah, sometimes you have to pull your punches. I think when it comes to friendships, I think it's extremely important. I don't think there's any reason you shouldn't do that if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah. I think for people who, like, and sometimes tend to push people away, I don't always know where social boundaries are, Purple. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I struggle with everyone's different boundaries, since everyone has different boundaries too. But with people I'm friends with, I just go over this process of, like, really clarifying why I'm saying things to almost a redundant point. So there's no misinterpretation about why I'm bringing it up, even if it is weird. I can kind of give people an out and being like, you know, this is meant to make you uncomfortable or whatever, like, you want to not talk about it or not respond or whatever, you can do that, that's fine, but I want to, like, get this on my chest or whatever. Friendship, my instincts to explain, talk through my thoughts. Yeah, and I think part of what Graham is getting at, what I want to say for sure, is that he and you and everyone, we'd all deserve friends to understand those aspects of us. You know, a real friend, a real person who's going to be an actual friend, not just friendly with you, should understand and have value to that aspect of you. And I think for you, Purple, Aphasia is a good example of that. It has more deep friendship. As far as surface level friendship, yeah, I think that's hard for me to navigate too. It's kind of the base.
It's important to have some surface level friends. So the situation I'm in is I'm in the middle of nowhere in Salmon, Idaho. And I don't feel uncomfortable sharing that, because no one's going to go to the middle of nowhere, Salmon, Idaho, just to be weird to me. It's way too far away from anywhere.
Yeah.
But there isn't a community here for me to hang out with in person. So I don't get any value out of surface level friendships, because I don't have any surface level friends, because I don't have any people I can just go hang out with at a bar or whatever. If you're in a place where you have, like, a community that of people who is, like, somewhat like-minded, you don't have to be friends with all of those people, but you're going to be surface level friends with a bunch of them just because, oh, they sit near you at the bar when you go to the bar. oh, they are your friend's friend at the bar, and you regularly see them and talk to them and hang out and are drunk and whatever. That is valuable because a lot of people do need a lot of social stuff in their life. Everyone does, to a degree. I can get all of that online and be happy and healthy. Most people can't. If you can't do that, it's fine to just have those surface level friendships, and they're valuable because you can just go out when you need to go out. You can call up your bro and go to the sports bar and be a little frat boy with your other kind of jerky guy who you don't necessarily know very well, but you can have fun together for just a little bit. If you need that, it's worth pursuing those. And if that's the case, then you may have to work on not lampshading all your relationships with all of your trauma and your personal issues. But if you can get everything online that you need, you can fill your social circle with really close friends. It really depends on your needs.
Yeah, Nyx likens the whole process for them to be kind of like a trust fall. You know, when you're opening up yourself that way to somebody, it's kind of a here I am. I'm counting on you to not use this against me, kind of thing too. And yeah, I do that sometimes with people. Just, hey, this is a really heavy thing about me that's kind of weird, or like kind of something I feel this way about, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I were talking about consent, even in platonic relationships being valid. Yeah, 100%. Just ask. If you're ever unsure about something, just ask. And
yeah, can I share
admits
this
they've
with
been
you?
learning that.
Are you uncomfortable hearing about this? That's what you should do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to touch on this
And
topic. Is that okay? Are you in a place to hear that right now?
Yeah. Yeah. For you, Purple, that's what I'd recommend is, listen, hey, I typically trauma dump. It's a flaw. It's a problem sometimes. Is this too much for you right now? Because I can, or is this too much for you in general? Because I can stop. You need to tell me if it's too much. The other thing I'd tell you, Purple, is a lot of times people trauma dump when they have a lot of unresolved trauma. But it's not just that it's unresolved, it's that they haven't ever gotten feedback that is valuable or that they really think is true. A lot of times you'll tell a bunch of people and maybe they won't understand it completely, and the feedback they give you like won't really apply to what you actually went through. Or they'll say something like completely frivolous because maybe they didn't want to hear it, or maybe they say something frivolous because they have frivolous opinions. That is, if it becomes a real problem, that is the point where you do need to seek therapy, because what you're looking for is for someone to give you feedback on what you went through. And that can be tough.
In some cases, oversharing can also apply to like kinks or like other vulnerable aspects of yourself that are kind of like
and
not appropriate.
you need to find some people that are comfortable hearing that. You definitely need there needs to be a heuristic that you go through so you can vet a little bit what people are comfortable hearing. I'm extremely open with my kinks, but the way I'm open with my kinks is usually I enjoy bringing up like cursed shit that makes people mildly uncomfy in a funny way. And that is sometimes more acceptable than like just blatantly talking about like, oh, I went to BDSM night. And sometimes it's way less acceptable than that. It really depends on who I'm talking.
Yeah.
it can definitely be hard to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just something you got to practice. I can't really give advice.
I remember that. Yeah, sure, for sure. With that, we now go back and close all of these tabs. Get to
we're on
the
our
main
final
meat.
stretch.
This. Let's just take a
Here
moment to let that title sink in here. Just a moment of silence for this title.
I'm glad I could help, Purple. So here we are. Am I the asshole for telling my wife that it's messed up for her to want to leave me after she encouraged me to get evaluated and she didn't like the results?
Yeah. Wild. And this, at base value...
So this seems really one-sided.
Yeah, for sure. You take it just from there. He says, I've been with my wife around 8 years. We met in university. That's a long time. I've always had certain struggles. I've always felt off, but I've managed. We have a 2-year-old, and I've exhibited certain behaviors that worried my wife, so she started to read books, and as my mom told her that I also exhibited such behaviors, and she said it was normal. To be fair, I am far from normal, so I get my wife's concern. We spoke about it, and I suggested, why are we beating around the bush? Let's get a professional opinion of our son, which we did, and it turns out he is okay, but we keep an eye out. Now this is where things start to go awry. Now, my wife wanted me to go get tested. I expressly told her I do not see the value in me getting tested. I'm happy. I get on some deeper level, I'm probably indifferent, but I'm okay with that. I don't need confirmation. I don't know if he means conformity or confirmation.
I think he just means confirming. He doesn't need a confirmation that he's different. He knows.
Okay. So either way, she encouraged me, and I said, fine, what the hell? What is the worst that can happen? Pretty much tell me what I suspected for a long time, and go through the process, and it turns out I most likely suffered from a form of ICD as a kid, most likely ODD. I'm 100% on the spectrum, and I have ASPD, but apparently I'm also extremely intelligent, which is news to me. I was never a great student, but not a bad one either. It appears it has played a large role in why I've been able to function. I'm a transparent guy, so I gave my wife the report, and she read it. It also appears she was asked questions about me during my evaluation. My wife is upset because she doesn't know who I am anymore. She doesn't know what is an act or what my feelings truly are. I tried to explain I do love her, but she asked me difficult to answer questions like, what is love, and how do I know if I love her, if I do not know what love even is? It caused an entire debate, and I asked her, did she ever question my love prior to this? Did she have issues with me prior to this? She told me no. Our marriage was great, her words. She always thought of me as a kind, compassionate, caring, and lovely person. And I asked, why does that have to change because of one report on me? She stated, because according to the report, I have a deeply flawed view of emotions, and most of my feelings and behaviors probably don't an expectation or perception of what I think is a proper response or reaction. Man, it's a lot, just by itself. To be honest, it all went over my head. At the end of the day, I told her I am me, but she claims how can she know this is true or if I am all the things she thought I was? This could be an entire act. I told her this was her idea. I mean, I didn't want to go get tested. That's how I thought things were. She claimed she needed to know for our child and told me she's going to leave and need space. I gave her the space for about 4 months. Then, I got divorce papers. I called her up and asked her what is up, and she said she wants a divorce. She does not know what is real or what is not with me anymore, and she has to do what is best for our child, given the possible genetic and environmental factors being raised by someone that has my issues. Then she told me I wish I never got tested, and I told her, but this was her idea. She flipped it, saying I could have fought harder against it, and then blamed my mom for not getting me tested earlier. This was when I said she's kind of messed up for wanting to leave me, and did what she wanted. Help me out here, Reddit. And
so initial reaction is exactly what I said for a lot of the first ones. Don't gaslight yourself, lady. He's just a guy. But then I read a little deeper.
Yeah. I do want to touch on, before we move on here, though, if we were to take it at face value, with the whole concept of how do I know you really love me? How do you know what love even is? How do I know it's not an act? That's something you can grapple with anybody. I mean, anybody could act. You know, even someone who's totally quote unquote normal, no mental illnesses, could act and just fake it the whole time. You have no way of knowing. There's no real way. And that's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
But you can't
But
do
that's
that to
people.
yourself. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
You can't do that to yourself. You have to just, like, maybe that is the case, but if it's functioning, if he says he loves you, he acts like he loves you, he takes care of your son, does his part of
What
the
does he
of the
do?
relationship and stuff. I mean, it's not great that he has these problems, but fuck it. I don't know.
It's sort of like
That's
the
not really
guy
anything.
who I always forget his name, but he's one of the premier experts on psychopathy.
Mm.
And obviously that term is not necessarily used super commonly anymore as a generic, but that was his field of study. And he developed a whole set of tests to actually diagnose it in a consistent way, and he tested himself, and it turns out he was a psychopath. He was like, oh, well, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And it really, like, for a bit, it threw his relationships with his family into a bit of chaos. And then they were like, okay, he's still the same guy. Like, he's a functioning psychopath.
Yeah.
But he's a psychopath, but he's a functioning psychopath. He knows what his issues are. He knows how to handle it and keep himself stable and interact in society. And that's good enough.
Yeah. Which is where we have the difference between the mental disorder, just the mental.
Mm-hmm.
If you have control over it, you're not hurting anybody. I mean,
yeah. Yes, being neurodivergent versus having a disorder.
Yeah, because the disorder part is what really is the problem. That's the literal definition of the problem. If it's not a problem, then it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Getting diagnosed changes the way that people view you, and that can suck. His diagnosis don't change who he is or has been. Yes, 100%. So we kind of have a double-edged sword here, and we'll move on. We'll see that there is more to unpack here, and we're taking all this at face value. Benefit of the doubt, though, is important. I think we don't know more. Again, we're not condemning anybody here. This is not a real jury we're on. We're just going over
really,
the
at the
details we have
moment, it
available.
sounds like his wife has done him a really huge disservice.
Yes.
Like a gigantic one.
Because this is so relatable to us, though, we know situations like this happen, even if all these facts are correct based on what we're being given. This is such a common experience that,
Oh yeah,
like
it's
Purple said,
extremely easy to
it's not
empathize
fair, but also common. And it is. It sucks to hear this because we know this kind of stuff. Let's see, Kyra. I feel like this is rough because obviously, so we kind of had a feeling. Now we're on it.
with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also get it. I get the fear of the unknown, the fear of what if. But yeah, a bunch of disturbances to be had here. Do you want to say anything else before we move on to the next portion of this?
I think we can now kick it into high gear because there is more to this.
There's more to this, and we'll scroll down a little bit first before I go down. This person, psychiatrist here, having to provide input on ASPD. For anyone curious, can give specific advice. First of all, I have double text on this thread. I'm curious to the diagnosis, blah blah blah. Add. Okay, cool. So we'll wait for a second here. We will look at this just briefly.
Oh yeah.
Impulse control disorder and ODD.
This ODD is a weird one because, as many of us know, it's fucking fake, basically.
Really? I actually didn't know that.
It's not completely fake necessarily. Like, it's not totally clear, but it's massively overdiagnosed in children of color.
Oh, is it like kids are being kids and we don't like it, so it's a disorder thing?
And particularly in inner city situations, it's just an excuse for resource officers to beat up children, basically, beat up black kids. Now, there is some evidence that it is a real thing on some level, but it's really it's an abused diagnosis.
Gotcha.
Oh. All right.
Back. Cool.
So it sounds like
Great.
we're back.
So, yeah. So there is an old account. There is a new piece of information we're gonna review here.
Someone tracked down someone who
Reddit.
is a Reddit warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Was like, oh, let me see if this account is associated with this other old account.
Yeah.
And it turns out this is a well, it's here on our best of Redditor.
Yeah.
It's a classic post. People are like, oh. It was a big deal. So what's the trigger warning here?
Yeah, great question. So trigger warning: admission of sociopathic behavior of OOP, sociopathic behavior of a child, mentions of sexual harassment, fraud, theft of violence, threats of violence, controlling behavior, manipulation. So we all see where this is going. Mood spoiler, also. Mood spoiler, I'm also scared for his wife. Yikes. So, original post, which was deleted, and this is a log basically of all of that. This is an archival situation happening. Am I the asshole for screaming at my wife I didn't make our 4-year-old a sociopath? Man.
So already we have details that are differing.
Yes, he's now showing more. He's 34 male, wife 39 female. So that raises a few questions, none of which are problematic for me in nature, but making me curious about how they met, the nature of their original relationship. Not too important right now, but something to kind of consider as we move forward.
5 years is pretty much nothing in my mind.
My point there, more than anything, is that younger, shady folks, younger, shadier, or unstable people, and I mean that unstable foundationally more than mentally.
Yeah, less opportunity to get their act together.
Yeah, can latch on to people who do have their shit together. And kind of, and you know, that's a whole thing to unpack by itself, but we're moving on to more details without going over that. I come from a family with a history of mental illness and unethical behavior patterns on both sides. My wife, 39, is obsessing over that fact because our 4-year-old son is showing extreme antisocial behaviors. She didn't know much about my family until 2 weeks ago. She also did not know about my previous criminal charges. I shared it all with her now in hopes of brainstorming a solution to help our son. So, already, lots of questions about how she married him and had a kid with him without knowing this kind of stuff. You know,
4 years, too.
No blame on her part necessarily, because, you know, you just want to assume the best for the most part, but
it's clear stuff was concealed.
Yeah, something is amiss. Yeah, we're getting there, Kyra. Buckle in. Our kid was kicked out of a kindergarten for biting other kids. Oof. We know this horror story. Strangely enough, he plays well with the neighbor's children, and his company is sought after. In preschool, he does not want to share. He can hold a grudge and sulk for 3 days straight with no break. Incidents as small as running out of his favorite flavor of ice cream can set that off. He likes kicking anthills and crushing insects. I can best describe it as a strange, intentional fascination with putting others in discomfort or disturbing the balance of things. My wife has sobbed multiple times for hours in my arms about the situation. We don't know why he's doing any of this. We're trying to reach him in warm conversations, but he's playing his own game, or we are fools. We were talking in bed one evening where childhood behaviors came up. We wanted to know if we could ask our parents how they dealt with us. Up to that point, she thought we were both extremely well adjusted, so what worked for us must be good. I decided to tell her about my past. The reason I hadn't done so earlier was because I was putting it all behind me. But I'm also very concerned for our son, and the filter came off without me realizing. As a child, and up to my 20s, I also exhibited sociopathic traits. I remember searching other kids' backpacks and stealing money when I was 9. Not sure where I got the idea. At 25, my employer wanted to press charges against me for fraud. I lied about going to an Ivy League university when I didn't attend any. I proceeded to mismanage major projects while admittedly creating toxicity. There are many other incidents in between. For a few years, I lived under a completely assumed identity and false backstory for a reason I can't quite say except the thrill of it. Lying has always come naturally to me as an amoral tool for navigating situations. My wife made a good point that my surroundings could have caused that behavior. but our son has had a very sheltered life. My Uncle Jeff is a sociopath. He's never treated people with respect and was jailed for fraud. My Aunt Kate's a psychopath as well, whose two oldest children no longer speak to her. They report horrific abuse while growing up. That's my mom's side. My mother has APD. She has an extreme lack of empathy and a tendency to cause conflict. She would often talk behind her friends' backs to me and when I was growing up, and she always seeks control and lacks self-awareness. My mother has not sought a diagnosis because she is a religious fanatic who does not believe in mental illness. My dad seems rather normal. I'd say he's the most well-adjusted of every member of my family, immediate and extended. On my dad's side, 2 cousins suffer from psychosis and schizophrenia. Our culture is one where infidelity is frowned upon and tends to cause divorce, but 3 of my dad's 4 brothers have children out of wedlock. Maybe it's not hereditary, and it's generational trauma, but I've worked hard to reverse my negative traits. For the past 2 weeks, she's come closer and closer to saying I betrayed her and our son is doomed. She joked about it at first, but now it's her own way of lightening it in her mind. I could tell it was sitting heavily on her. We can't talk about anything without it leading back to my past family history. She's able to tie the most unrelated details to it when we were watching a movie or taking a walk. We were doing the weekly shop when she tried to joke about me having a shoplifting gene. As it happens, yes, I did have a shoplifting habit for a while as a schoolboy. That's something I'd kind of buried in my mind. I had that nostalgic ecstasy when you remember a period after forgetting it entirely for years. I thought we were carrying on with the chit-chat, so I started recounting the details as it came to me. She turned all serious all of a sudden and said this is a serious issue, and it's like she doesn't know who I am. She started saying our son is in serious trouble and needs help, and if she'd known, she could have sought help for him when he was extremely young, but she didn't because I never told her, and that was unfair to her and an evil thing to do. I lost my temper and screamed that she must not be smart to have married a sociopath and not realize all this while. Clearly I've changed, and the whole thing seemed to worth a look in the beginning, but now it seems like voodoo thinking to me. She hasn't spoken to me for hours. When I approach her, she faces another direction or tells me to go away. Am I the asshole here? Yikes. Yikes. So this is part 1 of 3 we're unpacking now, by the way. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. We definitely have some... Now that we're on this part, we have some other weird signs going on. I mean, this guy's... He's trying to move on from his past, he says. He's hidden all of this stuff. And he's intentionally hidden it. Not necessarily to disguise who he is, but at the very least to, like, just completely dismiss his history and start over from a blank slate.
Yeah.
Is that possible in this situation is first question. Can you just move on and correct those mistakes without confronting them in a direct way? Did he confront them in a direct way? Definitely he made a mistake by not disclosing some stuff so that they could, like, approach this from when the child was a kid. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
It should come up.
There should have been some kind of reconciliation or proof that there was a change, and since it was kind of quote unquote hidden or revealed in an undue time or like imperfect time or unideal time, just kind of makes it a lot harder. But I think Crash point earlier, her inability to cope is going to be the issue here, because even with him saying all of that, you know, her being unable to cope with those facts and him still being a person who still has feelings and still has, you know, connections at least, if not feelings, it's going to have a problem. So the point that we're making, though, he also is clearly an asshole because he did scream at her. And not for a great reason or in a great way. I mean, losing your temper is fine. In some cases, everyone gets, you know, where you just snap or whatever, but it doesn't serve anybody. Like, it's still not something you should do, even if it's understandable and not ideal. But no, it's her saying like I don't know who he is difficult because I mean.
He did conceal a whole lot of things from her. Whether or not he's been honest about his personality going forward. He did conceal a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it was important for his child's well-being because a lot of those tendencies can be managed much better from a very early age if they are known about before they actually rear their heads. Whoa, Hestia. What was that?
Sorry, cookies.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Chocolate chip.
Oh my.
Chocolate chip Walmart cookies. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, should she have called him evil? No. But clearly there was some passion going around. Should he have screamed? No. But clearly there was some passion going around.
Yeah. Unresolved issues, and there's just no... I feel like one of the issues here, too, and I'm really talking about, is that when she got the diagnosis, she should have gotten straight to research, I think. I think she immediately, not just for understanding him necessarily, but for her own safety, you know, also, and for like what was best for her son and stuff, gotten straight to researching and talking to the doctor and stuff about, well, how do I live with this? How do I live with a psychopath? Is it possible? Is there a way to reconcile this? How do I go through this? We don't see her here on Reddit looking for advice. It doesn't sound like. No one found anything anyway. We don't see any. We don't know about what she's going through or whatever the case. But I feel like that would have definitely helped if there was some kind of attempt to be like, well, what is psychopathy? What is sociopathy? How does it really affect you? Is it possible for someone who's like that to love you? Is it worth being in a relationship with somebody like that? I mean, they're everywhere. You know, that's such a wide.
Yeah, it's a pretty normal thing.
Yeah, I mean, what's like one in
look at all the grifters out there. They're just untreated.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. We rock.
Yeah.
Fuck it, you know. Fuck it, we rock.
Yeah. So, in a meta textual sense, on a meta textual level here, we've also sort of come across maybe another issue, which is this guy has come, like this, the guy in the comments has linked that first post to this one, identified that they were accounts made by the same person. There are a lot of details about this story that do not match the other story. Now, it could be he's just like looking for a second opinion, and it's hard to get a second opinion when you're asking the same Reddit that's valuable if the details aren't maybe a little slightly different. Like, he just wants to alter the story a little bit to make it to maybe get a slightly different response, so he has something else to chew on. On the other hand, he could just be altering the story for some other reason.
Yeah. Yeah, managing your own image like that.
So that's kind of a not a red flag, an orange flag.
Yeah, caution for sure. Do you want to read the next section here?
Sure.
It looks like it's mostly the same, I think.
Yeah, I've been following on with you, so let me open it up.
Yellow card next is a good way to think it, yeah. Oh, Kyra's got something here,
yeah,
too.
But I like orange card, because it's fake.
And get wanting to move on. Huge part of partnerships is trust.
Okay. So, here is part 2. Posted February 1st, 2024. I need advice to resume control of my marriage ASAP. I am currently at a loss. So the title of the post is, Wife 39F found out about my 34M family medical history and possible connection with my son's issues and won't talk to me. My wife 39 will not speak to me, 34, and I fear this might be difficult or impossible to recover from. 2 weeks ago, I told my wife that my family has a... Get out of it. 2 weeks ago, I told my wife that my family has a history of mental illness, antisocial behavior, and trouble with the law. I want to emphasize that I shared this information of my own accord, and I could have kept it private. Somehow, that seems to be getting lost in her viewpoint. So now she is making me out to be the bad guy for telling her things. So much for honesty. Basically, she is pushed too far and insensitively on this issue, and I ended up screaming at her in the shop yesterday, and she hasn't spoken with me since. The background is this, so we've gone over this background, but we're going to go over it briefly just to see about inconsistencies. There might not be any. Our 4-year-old has been causing some issues at home and in preschool. He's been biting other kids. He laughs at others for being in pain and discomfort. He likes kicking anthills and squashing bugs. My wife says he stares at their insides after crushing them, but I've personally not witnessed that. Once, when another kid fell and started crying, my son's reaction was to go over and hit him. These behaviors are odd to me, too, but I don't think they're very alarming. One incident with my son was taking a knife from the kitchen and apparently threatening to stab my wife is. My wife... Cat, get out of here. My wife has wept over this multiple times, and I've comforted her and assured her it will be okay. One evening 2 weeks ago, we were in bed talking about our own childhood problems. Hers were nothing concerning. Mine were worse, but she didn't know them, so... Okay, this is redundant. I didn't necessarily hide them so much as put them behind me. Given our son's potential condition and my intense desire for him to not follow that path, I did for a while. The path I did for a while, I told her some details about my history. So this is just going over his childhood. Up to his 20s, employer pressed charged for frauds, had lied about Ivy League, mismanaged projects, was toxic, lost money for the company, stole things when he was 9, wasn't sure about his reasons for doing many of these things, spent a few years living under a false identity, and history for no real reason except the thrill. So again, this guy is saying, this is the past, and not who I am or how I think anymore. And a lot of it has seemingly been suppressed. It says there's been countless other incidents, but so many that some come to me as long forgotten flashes. So a lot of this, he didn't really commit to memory. He may have repressed it. It's all 100% behind me, he says. So he's now detailing his family history. Blah, blah, blah. And my mom's, one of her siblings is a known abuser and conflict monger who successfully alienated her 2 eldest kids. Another is convicted fraudster and adulterer by different women. 3 kids by different women. She's a brother who died of a neurodegenerative disease. My maternal grandfather was a known troublemaker, but has mellowed out in his old age. His mom has ASPD behaviors, and they're not in contact. So my wife sounded bemused and disturbed, but overall fine. And to mention of these details, she was quite jokey and a good spot about it until she got serious and concluded there were major risk factors for our son during the conversation from yesterday. That caused the fallout. My question for you is, how do I get back in my wife's good graces or create an environment where she is receptive to me? I am losing precious time. She is getting colder by the hour. The more solitude she has to craft her independent perception of me, the harder it will be to get back to our life of happiness. For context, she has been wanting us to learn an instrument together well enough to compose. A backyard re-landscaping project to achieve a very specific aesthetic. A trip or a visit to her closest cousin who lives in France. An overhaul of our decor in the house. An e-bike. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but I'm just adding that for personalization. Simple ideas are more than welcome too. How can I approach her so she doesn't turn me aside or tell me to go away? What can I say exactly? Ideally, it shouldn't mean I'm on a weaker footing throughout the discussion. Thank you for your suggestions. The more specific, the better. So, real quick, before we get into this, just his question, like, how do I manipulate my wife?
Yes.
To be more receptive to me.
Yeah.
Not how do I approach her in a healthy way? Not how do I take care of my son when my wife may be trying to like pull out of contact? Not yeah, he's explicitly asking for how do I manipulate my wife, which is
Yeah, the
now
mask
a
is slipping.
big red.
Yeah, mask is slipping. Because we've
Mhm.
seen the evolution kind of here. Even though the first post was newer, the mask was properly put back on. In this case,
I
he's
think,
kind of panicking, I feel like.
yeah,
Where he
I
did the
think a big
first post we
revealing
read.
statement is the more solitude she has to craft her
Yes.
independent perception of me.
Yes. This
Whoa.
whole line right here. I'm losing precious time. She's getting colder by the hour. The more solitude she has to craft her independent perception of me, the harder it will be to get back to our life of happiness. There's so much delusion in that alone. It's almost like poetry, the way he writes it. And it's kind of like really dark energy way. You know what I mean? Because if you can spot it, if you can see it, you know implicitly this is not just a red flag. This is a fucking like this is an alarm. This is a klaxon for sure. Like this is bad. Um, I agree with you 100%. There's a couple of cases of that here in this whole post. Um, the first one we saw was kind of more hinged, for less better thing, and then this one, yeah, more hinged than unhinged. This one is kind
More
of
hard right.
yeah, more stuff, and then this one is like he's kind of losing it. And this part, it starts at the very beginning of this post. I need advice to resume control of my marriage ASAP. I'm currently at a loss. To resume control.
Resume control.
Resume
So he thinks he
control.
had control of his marriage beforehand.
Yes. Yes, and so I've met people like this who view people as a game, whereas like a dating sim in some cases when they're trying to pursue someone they want to be partners with, like someone they want to like get involved with in that way intimately. And like, what do I say to her? What do I say to them to like make them like me? It's like, stop it. This is creeping me out. What you're doing, I don't like it. Stop it. You can't treat people like this. It's not like Kyra exactly. She's not a person, not an object. You can't treat people like a game like that. And another thing here, he said at some point.
I don't know, real quick. I don't know if this is your phrasing, Kyra, or if it's from something, but it's very articulate and very elegant. Honesty without kindness is brutality, and kindness without honesty is manipulation. Neither are love. It's not safe or okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Write that down.
It's a good axiom.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, this one. This line here also. These behaviors are odd to me too, but I don't think they are very alarming. One incident with my son taking a knife from the kitchen and apparently threatening to stab my wife is. My wife has wept over this multiple times. I've comforted her and assured her it'll be okay. Whew. Will it? I'm struggling to imagine how you could possibly do that.
Yeah, well,
Imagine
I
the
mean,
pain of
just
your
saying like
own
it'll be
son.
okay. I feel
You
like that's
know?
a situation where you're like things aren't okay,
Yeah.
and
You can't
saying
just
things are
brush that
going to
under the
be
rug.
okay is like presumptive at best.
At
Like
best,
you have to
yes.
work. You have to work for that if you want it to
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah.
But that's definitely like, ooh, so it definitely seems like he is like not just trying to reassure his wife, but placate her.
Yeah.
Nix, I'm like laughing at your description here. I'm imagining like a Dora the Explorer. What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Reddit,
What
what
could
do I do, Reddit?
what could possibly have gone wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's a whole comment thread here where we kind of see the highlights of the comment thread that was saved. Um, One person being like, "Do you think your wife's anger is valid? Like, genuinely, this is not to be like a gotcha question. I can't figure it out from your answers." And guy says it's disproportionate and therefore not valid in my mind. Ooh. But I understand that people need to feel understood and accommodated when their reactions are irrational. And that's wow, I feel like I just went on a whole roller coaster in two sentences. Um, Disproportionate and therefore not valid, but also I get it, even though it's not valid. Um, so kind of at odds with himself and with the world, feels like, and he knows it. He knows he doesn't like that. He feels like it's stupid, but acknowledging that it has to be dealt with anyway. So it's kind of like a self-aware thing to a point, but obviously not healthy. And then this guy.
So I mean, Steph, yeah. The next two comments are classic Reddit,
Yeah.
where they're almost gaslighting this guy into like becoming more paranoid and more creepy. So
yeah, you are not the arbiter of rationality.
Yeah. Yeah. So he says, blah blah blah. Overacting to this isn't worth it. We're throwing away 5 years and a happy future. That's his response to you are not the arbiter of rationality. Everyone thinks your wife is being reasonable.
Yeah.
That's up to her to decide, not you. Our son's life is involved, along with my lifestyle. So it's not a one-person decision. We all have skin in the game. She still has agency and can and should leave you, either with or without your son. Okay, thanks. If you were planning to leave a husband, what preparations would you be putting in place? What would be the tells? And Potato says, are you going to murder her? Do you consider that a reasonable choice? So already, I mean, like, Potato's maybe not doing the best thing here. He seems to be kind of riling this guy up and driving him into a frenzy. No, I've never been involved in violent crime ever. I'm asking because I find your point reasonable and would like to investigate whether she is planning to disappear. What would be the signs? Potato, you've never been involved in violent crime yet. You'd never yelled at her yet either until you did. I don't trust you to be self-aware enough to predict your own behavior. Hopefully you'll wake up one morning and she'll be gone. What you're saying is alarming because our son is also mine. What are the signs that someone is planning to disappear? How can I investigate? I'd really appreciate you answering these questions, please. I'm not going to help you because doing so would hurt your wife. I want her to be safe, happy, and alive. Giving you clues would put that in danger. Yeah, so yeah, this is very Reddit behavior. But also this guy's responses are not the responses of a mentally well person. Whether or not Potato is like driving this guy into a paranoid frenzy.
Yeah. He's definitely not helping. I don't think it's good, and we get more information out of him over this, but not for good reasons. Yeah, good question,
because
Nix.
he's a control freak, Nix. Yeah, that's why he's pestering him.
Yeah, he's trying to get some kind of information that's useful. He's not feeling this is useful. He's trying to get something useful to validate his effort in this conversation. So he's like, so what are the indicators? Potato, your son would benefit from intensive psychological intervention as soon as possible. Forget about him as a person. You'd want him to turn out to be nothing like you. Distance between you and him would benefit him. And he says, my wife is not equipped to raise him if he really is developmentally disturbed like I was. He needs someone who understands him deeply to shepherd him through childhood and adolescence. Otherwise, he'll keep getting into trouble enjoying odd things, not knowing what's wrong with him. And to a point, I can see where that would be, like, helpful, but everything else in context around this is like, no way. No way can I possibly trust you're going to do the right thing here for this kid. After everything you said, yeah, add. Let's see, quite a bit here.
Or tweet. Yes. So this whole, I mean, I don't think we necessarily need to go through the rest of that comment string with Potato.
Good bit.
But the next post is underneath that.
Yeah, here. This following day, yeah. Potato statements about not giving any information for safety and space, understandable. Yeah, but also he could have just stopped responding anytime to not keep getting into that. And that's really the key, I think, Nix, is, you know, you gotta know when to kind of be like, okay, well, this isn't, nothing I'm gonna say here is really gonna solve anything. This guy's too far gone.
Potato pushed him into a frenzy a little bit, which you maybe shouldn't have done, but they
Yeah.
did so in order to test the waters and to see what this guy's mental was like.
Yeah.
Which I think was valid. You can't tell until you see how they respond to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably shouldn't have responded for as long as he did, because we scrolled down and skipped a lot of comments.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard them before. They're wild.
We're just gonna wait for Kyra to say back. Whew, big yawn.
It's kind of Reddit. I don't want to justify what they did as validating Potato's behavior, but I do agree that probing someone's intentions is important when trying to understand what their pain is or their aim is. Not everyone is upfront about what they say and plan to do. Yeah. Yeah. Also, you will also understand this therapist who can help. Yeah. Son has already threatened her some other. Yeah, that's something I want to touch on too before we move on. Kyra, the whole child gonna stab the mother thing. What is the solution there?
It clearly needs professional help.
Yeah,
and this is not the sort of thing that parents are equipped to handle, really. Not even if you've taken a dozen parenting classes.
Yeah, because like even if you have him in the picture, the kid grows up. I mean, if that kid's gonna be a problem when they grow up and stuff, they're gonna be a problem regardless of the dad being there. I think. I don't think there's anything Dad's gonna be able to do to solve that, because surely no one who was in a situation like that helped him that way and his family.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some parents that are equipped to handle this, but definitely like 0.1%.
Yeah, not these two at 0 right now for sure. I don't feel like.
Yeah.
But the next part here, my 34 male married life has imploded in the last few days. I have a feeling my wife, 39 female, is planning to flee in the dead of night or when I'm not around. Someone suggested that idea, and now I can't get it out of my head. So we know here, Potato did in fact plant that in his head, unwittingly, and it is now driving him crazy. He's panicking. And their hands full of ownership, yeah. Hers, but I don't mind if she needs space. My concern is she will probably take her 4-year-old son. I cannot allow that under any circumstances. She is an unfit parent to him. So we've escalated now from her being not enough to straight up being unfit. And can't allow this. This is not like he's gonna wrest control any way possible. She hasn't spoken to me in 2 days.
Not that I really would be extremely upset if my wife effectively kidnapped my son, but I can't allow this under any circumstances. She's unfit.
Yeah. She hasn't spoken to me in 2 days. This is the first time she's sulked like this. Her friends and cousins are poisoning her against me, and she's been on the phone a lot lately. Ooh. I would ask her what she's planning directly, but I cannot be assertive at this time because his mouth is very shaky. I also don't want to give her ideas or possibly rush her plan. If you can point me to stories of wives who have fled their husbands similarly, that helps spot patterns. Or you can tell me specific things that point to a person who's about to disappear. If I'm sure she's planning to abduct our son, I want to be able to flee first so our kid is in my care. At the same time, I don't want to make that move wrongly, as it would escalate the conflict. Long term, I would like us to be a happy family again, but this is a turbulent time. I need to secure some leverage, especially regarding our son. She has also proven, has also proven unable to parent him effectively, and will probably cause him permanent damage. It's in our son's best interest to be with me. Yikes, yikes, yikes on bikes. Wow. Yeah, exactly, Kyra. Yeah, leverage stands out here. And again, the mask is slipping. Yeah, it's just slipping. Yeah, he absolutely should be...
Potato yes, he planted a bad idea in his head, but by driving him into that paranoid frenzy, he has made that mask very obvious, and he's probably made that mask pretty obvious to his wife too. So this is maybe maybe has a double-edged sword. It's made the guy a little paranoid, but it's probably made it more clear to his wife that her husband is not stable.
Yeah, any uncertainty in that regard is now going to be dispelled. And it's going to be 100% rooted in fact. Oh, this man's erratic. This is what's like. This is what it's like when he's really unwell and kind of not handling things, and control slips and things aren't the way he likes them to be. Which we all have our moments when our routines or our things are fucked up and like not the way we like them, but there's clearly some things we're seeing that are abnormal, let's say.
Yes, abnormal.
Abnormal.
Not great. Imperfect.
Absolutely not ideal, for sure. But yeah, leverage keyword here. Secure some leverage, especially regarding our son. If she's gonna take him, I want to take him first. Wow. Way to admit that. Wow, crazy. Her friends and cousins are poisoning me, implying that if he could, he would separate her from them, so they couldn't do that. You know, negative space there is kind of dark and really gross. Also, I cannot be assertive at this time because the balance is very shaky. So, he's very aware of metrics and parameters he can operate within. He's very analytical, very practical in his application of these facts as far as what he's going to do with the information provided. And all the information, all the clues linking up here say anyone who is going to help him is only going to help him get away with something.
Yeah.
That's his only real thing he's trying to do here. It's very obvious at this point. And it's scary to see that kind of being revealed at full tilt. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's as the other thing is, so he calmed down, right? And posted that original post that we got linked to. Where he changed the details to try to get more information and hid more about his own past so that he wouldn't bias the comments towards him or whatever. So it sounds like he calmed down a little bit, but that's not reassuring to me.
Yeah, for sure. Also, Cairo, you mentioned he could turn violent against his wife. I also had the same thought at one point.
Big mistake.
Yeah, that setting him off didn't end like that in this case, but that definitely should have been on the forefront of his mind. Well, not yet, I think. Anyway. Yeah. We know as of when this was posted, which was this was a month ago. Still, this just happens to be still popular. Anyway. Yeah, so we don't really have any updates on this, unfortunately, at this time, I don't think.
Yeah. But if we want, we can scroll through some of the live comments on the best of post. But that's the end of the rabbit hole, is this man is crazy.
Yeah.
And if you see these signs, get away. Muffin Skytop says, I feel like I've heard a few true crime podcasts that started off like this. Yeah. It's not all of these people end up committing horrible crimes. But when they do, they tend to be pretty bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of Reddit comments here as well.
Yeah. Yes. As Kyra says, it's very clear he's sitting on a very thin line, and he could step off at any moment. The consequences could be very grave. Yes. If you see someone exhibiting these behaviors, if they're in a frenzy, don't give them ideas. If they're in a paranoid terror, don't give them ideas. Do your best to calm them down. Do your best to give them a safe space. Or just get away. Let them handle themselves.
Yeah. Push yourself.
If you know the person and you know their family, give them a warning.
Yeah.
Not like your husband's about to commit an atrocity, but like your husband's in a really bad space and is in a dangerous situation where he could do something very, very unsafe for himself and you and everyone else.
Yeah.
There are ways to handle this, but it was not how Reddit handled it.
Now I'm curious how you feel about the last thing in chat. Kyra says, honestly, I'd leave and report it. I am inclined to say that I would like to report something like that, but there's a lot of variability and subjectivity to that, unfortunately, with the way things are handled mental health wise or potential abuse wise, things like that in the States that make it less appealing. Less. I don't have as much faith as I would like to say for sure. I can recommend that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, report it to social services if there's
that I can agree to
good
for
social
sure.
service.
Yeah, if that's the case, I think
emergency response line in your area.
I guess
If there's
I
not,
didn't clarify.
yeah, if there's not, the police aren't reliable. They're liable to put the wife and kid in danger.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clear if you should tell the wife to pack and go, because telling the wife to pack and go could set this guy off too. Not just telling her, but like if she had disappeared after this guy had made the post, this guy probably would have done something very drastic. Not to say that the woman wouldn't have been probably in a safer space if he didn't know where she was. Or didn't have an idea. But and no, Kyra, that is not my solution. But it's definitely hard to say. It's hard to make any recommendation on any level. I definitely say for her, call a social service crisis line. Get yourself in a safe place temporarily, and make sure that social service crisis line.
A lifeline of some kind. You need a lifeline. You need someone to know that you're alive, and when you're gonna check in with them.
I'm not talking about not like a police check-in necessarily or whatever, but like a social service emergency response.
Some kind of something.
And for the wife, probably don't go to your mom's house. Go to a hotel. It's sketchier. It's not as comfortable. The guy's not gonna be able to track you down. That's the important part. And pay with cash.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky.
If he's going to leave, they need to have someone there to respond immediately, because it's very likely he would have done something.
Yeah. So he's kind of like a bomb. There's no perfect solution when you have someone like a bomb like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when everything that you could possibly do could result in danger, you have to mitigate your losses somewhere. But I agree, sitting and waiting is not the ideal solution, but you have to be mindful about leaving.
Yeah, if there isn't a social service emergency line, I guess you have to go with the police.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it just sucks because ideally I want to say, yeah, just go call the police, because that's what they're supposed to be able to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally we would want them to be able to solve that problem, but we know historically that's not going to be the case, not by a long shot probably, which that's a whole another topic for another time. But sometimes when we're exploring a rabbit hole like this, I don't think that we can always get a perfect solution or a real resolution, so much as, since we're going from the perpetrator point of view here, not from the victim, we can't really know her side of all of this and give her real bespoke solution. We don't really know.
I would definitely recommend, on a generic level, especially since she is in a space where she doesn't trust who he is or who he says he is, get out of there. There are times where, like, if you know the person and they have paranoid frenzies like that, if you've helped them through it before, getting out of there isn't necessarily always the thing. I have a cousin who is very paranoid schizophrenic, has threatened people, has committed felonies, hasn't caused any permanent violent damage yet. Not that he hasn't threatened to, not that he hasn't held people at knife point. But at the same time, it's a really hard spot to be in because he held his dad at knife point, my uncle. And I think my uncle was the only person who could have talked him down from that, and he did. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on how much risk you want to put yourself in. With the kid there, I wouldn't put the kid in danger. Definitely get out of there.
Yeah, it's an unwinnable solution, it feels like.
Make sure there's someone to respond, though, because that guy could go off and, I don't know, kill their neighbor.
Yeah.
She's hiding in the neighbor's bedroom. Kill her mom. I mean, it could go very bad. Now, like the guy said, he's never done anything violent before. Neither had my cousin till he held my uncle at knife point.
Yeah.
You get into that headspace and you go crazy. Someone who is not in a sane spot, and not even a mildly sane spot. Yeah. But yes, that's our rabbit hole for the month.
Yeah. What a time. What an experience. Yeah, that was a wild journey we went on there. A lot of really good thematic stuff, though.
Yeah. What it comes down to is none of us are experts in dealing with people who are in that extreme of a mental position. If you're not an expert, call an expert.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of lifelines, get people who are educated about it somewhere. Research as much as you can. Because he's doing his research. Is she? We don't know.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah, we can only hope. Especially now. Does anybody have anything else last minute to address? Any questions to be resolved before we end it for the night? We'll give it a minute while we look for someone to raid. No? You're good? Sounds good, Kyra.
Big bois, everyone. Big bois.
Yeah, it was good having everybody around. I think we're gonna...
It was a good and productive show, I think.
I enjoyed it. It was good. Sure. My friend Frosty here.
Frosty.
Frosty, we love Frosty in this house.
A dog's best life is measured in wags.
She looks very cozy.
Every recipe is made with carefully
She's very cozy.
Like chicken,
love her.
potato.
Get that? Ads on ads.
Thank you, Nix. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be doing this every... What is this? The first Saturday of the month? Yeah. I have it scheduled on my calendar. Every first Saturday of the month, the Advice Show with Gwam. We'll be doing that. So we're going to do the one... Not going to be every 4 weeks. It's every first Saturday. Anybody has any questions from here, you can post them.
It was a long show and it was heavy, so it's hard to do all the time.
Yeah, we can't do this kind of labor all the time. It's just not feasible, but I think I felt good about the spacing from then to now. It felt right, so definitely good. Yeah,
have a good evening,
being here. Really appreciated it, and I hope you guys have a good night. We'll raid Frosty, give her some love. I do have her messages.
And go do something relaxing. Up to and including raiding Foxy.
Yes.
Frosty.
Frosty, Foxy, Fox, Roast. Whatever you can say. Usually cutie is fine also. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you next time. Get over there.
Bye-bye.
Is that person yourself?
Actually, then there's two people.
Stop streaming.